I'll appreciate if you don't call or look for me anymore.
What?
Why did you break up with him?
He broke up with me.
To Maureen and Paul.
Cheers.
Una usuli atakafanya utoto sasa. Mara kwanza nilikuja nikamkosa. Na hii mara ya pili pia hayupo.
Nani aliyekupa ruhusa unapiga picha?
Mimi ni lawyer wa governor na nimetumwa.
Wazidi kunichekesha. Kila siku wanipamba. Utanipamba lini? Toa sahi 50k.
Kuja kupata aume hapa, kuja kupata kazi. Fanyeni kazi, hakuna kupetia na petia. Wewe kupetia mwanzo ni wapi?
Theirs will never be paradise again. Hence, no romance without finance.
Let's make this place as chaotic as possible.
Mtapostpone rights zao watoto mpaka lini?
I'm not your in-law. I'm not cut out for domestic work.
And you still wonder why your marriage is in shambles.
Unatumiaga moyo kufikiria badala ya akili.
The Wadis and the Jemedaris will always be a family. And you, Christine, will remain to be an outsider.
Me, I knew when I was getting married, it was automatic that I'll get my baby. So I did not do any family planning, and baby was not coming. So my in-laws thought, because I'm an orphan, they thought that I was doing that so that we can get money for dowry. So they actually told me on the face that I knew I could not conceive, but I ended up being married by their son.
Daktari akaniambia sababu hii tips zako zimeblock, kuna venye tunaweza unblock. Na nikafanya surgery ya kwanza. Nikapata mimba ikatokana miezi 2. So hata usiku saa zingine naamka naguza. Niangalie kama bado iko. Na madaktari wanasema kila kitu iko, mtoto wako sawa? Twins. Oh, you are pregnant with twins? Yes. Oh wow. Congratulations.
The world is becoming hotter, and world leaders are mark timing. Climate change activists are worried that if we do not take the necessary steps, the world will become inhabitable by the year 2100. What do we need to do to stop this march? Good morning and welcome to BizCheck. We're live from Broadcasting House. This is going to be our topic this morning because climate change not only affects the ozone layer, it affects our agriculture, our economic growth, as well as population. What is in store for us? Remember, in November last year, world leaders converged in the city of Glasgow in Scotland. Nothing much came apart from a lot of commitments and a lot of promises. What do we need to do to actualize those promises? My name is O'Brien Kimani. At O'Brien Kimani is our Twitter handle. And later on, we shall be having another interesting discussion. How do we encourage more women and ladies to join sciences? That's a conversation we are going to have here. Mwenda Mithika is in studio. Is going to guide us on the question of climate change and economic growth. Hi, Mwenda.
Hi, Kimani.
It's nice to see you this morning.
Yes, nice to see you, and thank you for welcoming me here.
Fantastic. So I'll be touching base with Mwenda Mithika. He's Executive Director of PACJA, which is the Pan-African Climate Justice Action. And we should be discussing a few things because he was actually in Glasgow. So this is BizCheck, and you know for sure that during this show, we link up with our reporters who are on the field to update us on what is happening from the world of sports, business, as well as general news. At O'Brien Kimani is my Twitter handle. At KBC Channel 1 is our Twitter handle. The big conversation is coming up next on climate change and economy, right here on KBC Channel 1. Very good. Welcome to the show. And of course, as I told you, this morning we're having a conversation on climate change. And remember, COP26 was held in the city of Glasgow in November last year. That's about 3 months ago. There was no much commitment that came out from the world leaders because actually climate funding is still a big challenge with about $100 billion in shortfall in terms of funding. But what do we need to do, because Africa is bearing the brunt of climate change? This morning we're joined by Mwenda Mithika. He's the Executive Director at Pan-African Climate Justice Action. He's going to help us understand what actually do we need to do, not only as a country, but as a continent and the world at large, to stop the serious marching of climate change and the impact it is having not only on our economic growth, but on many facets of our country. Thank you very much indeed, Mithika.
Thank you very much.
First of all, I want to hear your thoughts. You happen to be in Glasgow. I know you're rubbing shoulders with the high and mighty.
Yes.
Did you leave Glasgow feeling that we achieved what we went to Glasgow to do?
Well, we have conducted a lot of analysis on the outcomes of Glasgow. And truly, for Africa and Kenya in particular, we didn't really achieve what we expected in terms of outcomes because we were very ambitious. We wanted adaptation funding, agricultural funding, for instance, for our agriculture, and so forth. So there are so many gains which we expected. The aspirations for Africa, our priorities, were not achieved. And so it is still a fight at global geopolitical spaces.
Yes. I mean, you see, the whole point is that, we were supposed to go and have a debate on what we have missed, what we need to do, how much we need to inject into the global economy, and and whether we are meeting our green gas emission targets. But that actually never came out strongly. Why do you think there was so much sizzle, but not much take?
Yeah, for us in Africa and for us in Kenya in particular, we don't take climate change very seriously the way the Western countries take it. Climate change right now is actually one of the topical issues in the world. It shapes economies, it shapes politics, and it shapes all aspects of life. And so, when we were going there, a US delegation, European delegation, Australian delegation, the British delegation, they are looking at climate change as something very serious which actually affect their economies, affect their job creation, affects their agriculture, affects their energy, you know, the way they use their energy, the way they farm and everything. And so, for us in Africa, we look at it in very narrow perspective. In fact, even the policies which we have are shaped by the North, and that's the challenge which we have. We may be having a lot of policies here, but look at their background, who has shaped those policies. And that is the biggest challenge we have. We look at climate change in a very abstract manner. For us, it is very far. But we need to create awareness for our people so that we understand what does it mean to a tea farmer. What does it mean to a coffee farmer? What does it mean to that northeastern camel owner who is losing their camels every time? The livestock, the Maasai's livestock, even our wildlife. So that is where it is. We have not reached that level, and that's awareness is what we need, but based on the African context.
Very well. You see, so, you know, the discussion around, you know, the climate change is a very high level kind of a discussion. And it is high time that we bring it down to the ordinary person to make people understand how exactly they are contributing to climate change, how to come up with the solutions, and how it is affecting them. Probably, maybe you can take a few minutes.
It is actually, that's what we are doing at Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, alongside our national platform, like Kenya Platform for Climate Governance, and the member organizations therewith. The problem is, yes, it is actually the discourse is at international level. The nearest it comes, particularly at Kenyan level, is at national level. We have workshops, we have workshops, we have everything, but now do very, very good policies. The National Climate Response Strategy, the National Green Economy Strategy, we have the best law in Kenya on climate change, the Climate Change Act 2016, and many others. But when we ask ourselves, how do we implement this? Then you realize that actually our work is always doing policies after policies without implementation. We have realized that even with the law which we have not even made any achievement. The problem is that the process is the top-down kind of model which we have been implementing our policies, and I may not agree with the Kenya Kwanza Alliance or the UDA or what what they are propagating. They are propagating the bottom up. I think we have a problem of this policy implementation, and even the way we share even resources in every aspect of our operations as a country, and even at global level, that everything is top down. So what we are promoting, and I'm not vouching for UNDA or anything, is that bottom up. But for us, we are calling it from below, so that we differentiate ourselves from the politics of the country. That any solution of any problem, including climate change, COVID-19 and those others, is going to be provided by the people from the community, the people at the front line of these problems, particularly the people at the front line of climate change. The smallholder farmer, the maize farmer, who is suffering and even at the forefront of those impacts which we are seeing there. I come from a farming community. I know that impact. My mother planted maize last season, and by the time it was sprouting, it dried up because the rainfall disappeared. The camel people, you see how many they have lost. But will they identify that as an impact manifestation of climate change, or they will just look at it as an act of God? You see? So these are some of the things which, look at the people who live in Mount Kenya. I was reading the other day the report from WMO. They were saying, actually the African report was saying in 30 years, actually in 10 years, by 2030, we are facing a threat of the vanishing snow in Mount Kenya. And you know what that means? Where do we get our energy, our hydropower? It's from the Seven Fork dams. Where they can get water is from Abandeas, Mount Kenya. So the implication of that is that now
And also that is where Nairobi actually gets a lot of its water from. Of
course, water from not only Nairobi, industrial area. Where do they get the energy to power the industries in industrial area? So you can see that link. The disappearance of the snow in Mount Kenya has impact on our rivers, which drive our energy, and the energy which drive our industry. And then where will they get energy? PPPs. You see? The private power purchasers, and you know that is the problem, because they are very expensive and sometimes it is very erratic. So now those are lost jobs, lost productivity, and the problem which we have is that we are not able to connect all this. What this climate, you see, it is the changing climate, the changing weather. There is no rainfall, there is no snow, and then you see the impact of it even into our pocket or in our plate.
But what?
Yes.
But you see, the question that Africa has been asking itself is, in terms of contributing to the green gas emission,
yes,
I mean the amount that Africa contributes is negligible actually. But at the end of the day, Africa is bearing the brunt of green gas emissions. So what exactly do we need to do?
Yeah,
that was a question that was actually coming out of Glasgow.
And that is actually a question of justice, which we have been vouching. You caused the problem. The industrialized countries pump these greenhouse gases into the atmosphere in their process of development, and these are the impacts. They are not facing the impact as we are facing. They may be facing, but they have capacity to absorb and mitigate and adapt. But what about this farmer at very local level? So that is what we are saying, and it is the question that you have caused the problem. You have the responsibility to fix it. In the UNFCCC, the Climate Change Convention, all that is outlined what those people who have caused this problem, called industrialized countries, have to do. Provide the money for these people, for those farmers at my village to adapt to the impacts of climate change.
But they are not doing that.
The pastoralists to adapt to climate change, and even at our urban areas, erratic rainfall and floods, so that we can reconstruct our lives.
But how do we force the green emitter, I mean the green gas emitters, to contribute? Because even as we speak now, the world, we have a shortage about $100 billion in terms of green funding.
Yeah, we have, of course, we have that, but it is in paper. Those farmers at local level, have they seen that money? Does it come? How much comes in Kenya? I was in discussion with my fellow civil society colleagues yesterday, Wangari Maathai Foundation and those others. We are trying to see how do we track that money. Does it come, or where does it go? Even if it comes, do we have systems to have that money? But truly, it is debatable whether that money is given or not, because you go to the books, they say yes, we have contributed that money per every year. We contribute. The OECD, Organization for Economic Development, they say they are producing, but there is no money. So what we are doing in this, like in Glasgow, we were asking them, where is the money which you tell us about? So what they do, they are very tricky. They have twisted the books, they have twisted the policies in such a way that they are saying we have done, but it goes, if it's an adaptation initiative they are doing or mitigation, they fund big energy projects in Kenya, like the Lake Turkana wind energy power project, like this mega energy project is about their investment, is not about our adaptation. The most important thing, and that's what we are going to fight in, and we continue to fight in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh, in the COP27, which is we are calling the Africa People's COP. It's not African COP, it's African peoples, because we want to drive this COP, because that's where the decision. And what we are driving there is you have caused the problem, you have caused the loss and losses and damages into our economies. Like you have let our camels to die, our women and girls are suffering because of carrying water. So we want you to compensating them is loss and damage. And the adaptation finance, those are some of the things. We want the finance in agriculture. Where is that money coming from? Look at the statistics. Agriculture accounts for 33% of Kenya's economy. 40% of the people employed are employed from the agricultural sector. Yet it is the sector which is facing the biggest threat of this climate. What are we going to do? We have to diversify. We have to change. We were relying on rain-fed agriculture. We need to rely on irrigation. But do we have that money really to establish irrigation in my village?
I'll be coming back to that because, you know, the conversation now around agriculture is about the adoption or adaptation of smart agriculture. But
Yes.
before we get there, I mean, look, for example, you know, the G7 or the group of 7 richest countries in the world, you know, when you look at their combined military budget or
Yes.
military spending, you know, annually, it's more than $1 trillion.
Yes, yeah.
But when you look at their contribution, you know, towards green project in the world, it's less than $200 billion.
Yes.
Are they really serious about tackling the issues of climate change?
Actually, these are not the challenges we have as activists. At international level, we fought for the Green Climate Fund, for instance, because this is undemocratic and accessible, the way we believe, fund. It has been starved of money. Mzungu is happy channeling the money through their own channels, World Bank, which they control, and the International Bank of Reconstruction and Development, rather than putting it where we can control. These are the challenges of geopolitical competition. They will never let us to have control of what we have. And these are some of the things which we are fighting right now, trying to see where do we take our issues, where are our priorities, and do we have that political clout? You know that...
and the answer is absolutely no, we don't have any clout.
It is, but we have. Africa is constituted of 53 countries. We need to unite.
With a population of about 1.2 billion people.
1.2 billion. You know that during the African Union meeting just last week, President Kenyatta was elected as the chair of the Committee of Heads of States and Governments on Climate Change. I believe that he used his vigor to rally together the Africans so that we can have a stronger voice when we go to Sharm el-Sheikh, because it is out of that voice that we are going to push this obstinate government so that they can put more money into Green Climate Fund and funding agriculture at the local level, because that is where we need to go.
But let me even ask you this. I mean, look, what do you think, or how much do you think Africa, you know, can achieve, you know, even the AU can achieve when they face, you know, the likes of the biggest emitters of greenhouse? You know, we are talking about China, we are talking about the United States. Do you think they can have any clout by all means?
Well, and it is actually, I said again, the climate change has emerged as one of the topical issues of geopolitical interactions because of its importance. It's about the economies of countries. It's about the politics of countries. It's about socio status of individual countries. And so, when they go to negotiate, it becomes very hard. So that's why we cannot negotiate as a country like Kenya, because we have very little clout at international level. But when we amalgamate ourselves into one voice, the African voice, which we are pushing, and now under the hands of President Kenyatta, when we are going to Glasgow, to Sharm el-Sheikh, then it is going to be, we can have a voice. We have held it, and we had some wins here and there. So we need to be very hard, and we need to be very determined, and we need to be very forceful.
You're talking about, you know, the African Union with about 52 countries,
yes,
52 leaders,
yes,
1.2 billion people.
Yes.
How do we come up with a common agenda on green gas emission that we are going to take to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt in November?
We have already, the conversations have started. We are working with the African group of negotiators, the technical people selected by countries, representing countries in this group. They negotiate as a single unit. Our heads of states under the CAUSC, the Committee of Heads of States and Governments, believe that we need to work together in one single voice, and Kenyatta is the one who is doing that.
President Kenyatta.
We also have the Africa Ministerial Conference on the Environment. So we have several actors, and we believe that we need to drive this agenda together under the auspices of the African Union. Yes.
Look, during the Glasgow meeting, 65 countries agreed to phase out coal power. Unfortunately, the biggest coal power generator in the world, that is China, was not party to this. Do you think this is akin to winking in the dark?
Well, it's debatable. And, that's a question of what we are calling just transition. Because many countries asking, you industrialized countries, you are telling us to abandon coal, and we are at the apex of our development, yet it is easy for you because you have the technology and you have resources, so it is easy for you.
And these rich countries, they used coal during the third industrial revolution.
Yes. So now, those are now the difficult questions of this transition. And it is very difficult because they are saying, like you heard what Museveni was saying when he was signing the oil and gas agreement with the Shell in the Albertine, and he was saying, well, it was not good for us as the civil society because we are pushing for that phase out, keep oil on the ground, and coal on the whole. Why? Because we believe that that is not the future. Let me tell you. Even if we continue burning this oil, we continue exploring, I think I don't see the future of oil and the coal. The technology have been developed of renewables, wind power, geothermal, the hydropower, and the so forth, and the solar. And so, in future, it is not going to be even profitable, even to invest in coal. So that is the reality. President Trump, when he came in, became the president, because Obama and the Democratic Party, and actually made it clear that they are going to phase out all the coal and the fossil fuel and the oil and everything. So what happened? Trump was saying, no, you are killing our jobs and what have you. I'm going to revive coal and ensure that I make it at the center of our energy production. But he left when he was defeated, and we were very happy because he's a climate denier. When he was defeated, he left without having established even a single coal power. Why? There is no appetite by investors, even in coal, because it doesn't make any business case. So that is what is going to happen. So what we are urging our policy makers, our political leaders, is let us look into the future. There is no future of oil. There is no future so let us invest in renewables. That is the future. While we save the planet and humanity, we also make business out of the new reality of investment and technology.
For example, look at Kenya, for example, we are generating almost 80% of our energy, from renewable sources, and this is geothermal and hydropower. But Kenya, in the nexus of things, is just is a small player in the world. How do we encourage, the big players, to embrace renewable energy, to embrace clean energy going forward?
I think some of these things come naturally, as I've said, because you are not going to be compelled to use wind power because it is cheaper, it is becoming cheaper, solar is becoming cheaper. So it is actually the market which will determine that. So we are going to naturally abandon coal because renewables are becoming cheaper. There is, even in the US and those others, I think for them, it's not even about climate change. It's about now investment, and that is where the world is going. So the big powers actually are in this full time. Go to Norway right now. The cars in the roads of Norway right now are 67% are electric. Can you see that shift? So in the next 10 years, I can bet most cars in our rules.
But Norway has a population of less than 10 million.
I'm just giving you the direction where the world is going, whether it is a small population, but I'm just giving you a signal of where the world is going. So we are transitioning naturally without even struggling, because we have reached that level of the green revolution. It is inevitable. So for us, whether we want it or not, the world will shift us. In any case, what does Africa control?
The fact of the matter is that, the world is making progress in terms of, reducing green gas emission.
Yes.
The question is, are we making progress? Are we making this progress at the desired rate? Because the more we dilly-dally, the more the situation becomes complicated.
This is the challenge which we have. And what we as activists are calling the global community to do. We need rapid transformation. We need to shift in a very dramatic manner. Science is not on our side. Climate justice is not our side. We need to transition, and this means in the industrialized countries, even if we turn the whole of Africa green, without action being taken by industrialized countries. That is America, that is China, for instance, now is the biggest emitter, that is other. If we don't take that action, then we are continuing to exacerbate the problem of climate change.
Do you see the world becoming, reaching the much dreaded 2.4 Celsius degrees Celsius?
We are talking about 1.5. I think we are delayed, we are behind science. And the pressure is coming from us, the people. I'm very happy that the young people have embraced this. All the campaign led by young people. We are in massive mobilization of young people in schools, in colleges, and elsewhere. We need really to ensure that that is done, and they have to take drastic emission cuts.
Very good.
Through this solidarity action between us in the south and our allies in the north, so that now US accepts to cut their emissions at dramatic levels, the way science says.
Very well. You see, we're having this conversation. The fact of the matter is the world is becoming hotter. Even the studio is becoming hotter.
Yeah.
We need to take you to the field, because our reporter, they are on the ground, and of course we told you that they are tracking what's happening down there. Sarfin is now on standby with Education Chief Administrative Secretary Dr. Sarah Ruto. Let's get to hear what the conversation they are having there.
A very good morning to you, O'Brien Kimani, back there in studio. Indeed, we are coming to you live from Safari Park right here in Nairobi. I'm attending a 2-day policy dialogue conference on what is called lifelong learning that has been organized by the Ministry of Education in collaboration with other development partners. And a conference that is happening at a time when the implementation of the competency-based curriculum has gained momentum. And now the Ministry of Education has gotten into working with development partners to implement what is called the lifelong learning in the country, something that is aimed at seeing Kenyans not just getting the classroom knowledge, but also knowledge that will help them in making better decisions throughout their entire life. And I may not be able to expound more on this because I have the chief guest at this particular function standing by right with me here, and I'll just bring her on board to help us understand more about the purpose of this particular function, and also what is it that we are looking at when we are talking about the concept of lifelong learning in our country. I'm talking about the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Education at the Department of Early Learning and Basic Education, Dr. Sarah Ruto. Thank you so much for creating time for us this morning. We are live on BizCheck, and we just want you to tell us a bit about why this forum was important. And when you're talking about lifelong learning in our country, what is it exactly that we are looking at?
Thank you very much. The Ministry of Education, led by the Kenya National Commission, which is in the Ministry of Education, actually has put together this 2-day meeting in which we have invited members of the academia, members of the civil society to come together so that we can talk about lifelong learning. Why is lifelong learning important? It is actually what defines us. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goal 4, It talks about we need to aim for education that is inclusive, equitable, and offers lifelong learning opportunities for all. So at an international level, at a global level, we have committed ourselves to lifelong learning. When you come to the African agenda, to our own policies, we also state that we want to expand opportunities to all. So equity is very important. But we have seen sometimes we have tensions over here, conceptual ambiguities, and if you're not clear in your mind, then it means that even the practice will be affected. So the two-day policy dialogue, first of all, is really just for minds to come together to result in a sharper understanding about what this is and how to take it forward. How to take it forward in a more enunciated way, because lifelong learning is already happening. If you look at many people, for example, formally, after you finish your various certification, you'll find very many people opting to improve their skills, even in classes. Maybe sometimes it leads to a certificate, it leads to a degree, or sometimes it just leads to you having more information. That is formal lifelong learning. Then we have the more informal type, more incidental. And all this will happen if, first of all, you have the right attitude, where you are always inquisitive, where you want to improve yourself. So it is very important that we ourselves shape ourselves to be curious people, explorative people, because that is how we are born to be. But sometimes we stifle it. And this is what this conference, this policy dialogue is going to aim to do, to help us be sharper in our understanding of what it is, to help the various arms to come together to collaborate more, because without collaboration you will not go far, and to also investigate some of the practices that we have that actually impede instead of grow the very natural attribute that we should have as lifelong learners.
Just another question. What is your target population with the agreements that you're going to come up with in this, forum? Is it the children who are still in the basic formal learning curve, or the general population in the society? How are you going to make whatever you're discussing here practical out there?
So the very concept of lifelong learning, it is from cradle to grave. It is from when you are born, actually even before when you are born, because we are told it is very important to think about what a child will be even before they come to when you die. So lifelong learning is for all of us, literally. It does not have a start, does not have a stop. We should not have a 70-year-old in this country who is seated outside waiting to die. No. Because everybody, irrespective of who you are, you have a place in society. So what is obviously there is that it is easier to manage learning when it is formalized. Like, for example, schooling, college, that is still the formal and it's easier. But it is important to also look out for and cultivate those opportunities that go with us. Why is that? Let me take an example of 2020. When 2020 and the COVID pandemic came, you can see the way we used to do things was disrupted. Now, the people who were able to put themselves together, reorganize themselves, and look for new opportunities were the people who were curious, who were innovative, who were thinking in a different way. Now, that is an ingredient for a lifelong learner. So you can see it is the total population. And that is why the task here becomes more difficult, because it's easier to deal with targeted audiences in specific institutions. But here you're saying it is everyone. And that is why, though in this meeting we've not gotten them, the private sector will become very important, because a lot of learning happens over there in the industry. If you go to Juakali, they're always thinking about new ways of perfecting their job. We need to bring them in. Yes, as it is.
Thank you so much, and all the best with the forum and the deliberations that all the players are going to have here. Thank you so much. That is Dr. Sarah Ruto, the CAS in the State Department of Early Learning and Basic Education at the Ministry of Education. She's just opened officially a two-day policy dialogue conference on lifelong learning right here at Safari Park in Nairobi. Thank you so much, O'Brien Kimani. Now it's back to you in studio. My name is Safin Achieng Oma.
You know, our reporter there, Savino Chieng Oma, talking to Education CAS Dr. Sarah Ruto on continuous learning. A very interesting concept there. Let's come back to the studio because we'll be crisscrossing the country and, of course, getting to hear what our reporters on the ground are telling us. We are here in the studio. We're having a very hot conversation here on why the world is becoming hotter. This conversation, we're having it with Dr. Mithika Mwendwa. He's the Executive Director of Pan-African Action Justice. Let me get it right. Pan-African Climate Justice Action. Yes, you are. And the conversation we are having here is on climate change, what we need to do as a country, as Africa, and as the whole world. Thank you very much. And let's come back to the conversation that we are having here. Look, we were talking about, clean energy, and Kenya has set a target of the year 2025, to a transition to clean energy. Yeah. How do we ensure, or how do we force other countries, not just force, but how do we make other countries in the world, to see the importance, of transitioning from dirty energy to clean energy?
I think first and foremost is to create the incentives for renewables, the way it is happening at international level. Mm-hmm. We have seen that the price, for instance, of renewables has dramatically come down over the past 10 years, and they incentivize the fossil fuel, that is coal, oil, because there is a lot of money in subsidies which are given to this this sector, and then revert that, turn that to renewables so that they become as cheap as possible. Then investment in all this technology is very important, and that is where we see actually the gains for us. As we address climate change, we make business sense out of it. We encourage the private sector to be part of the solution, rather than the enemies, the way we have been looking for. And that is what we are doing in our organization. We have realized that at global level, the private sector is a critical player in this all discourse on climate crisis. But when we come to our countries, Africa, I think we are really lagging behind, and that is what we need to do so that we are not going to be left behind by this ensuing revolution.
And you have rightly put it. I mean, when you look at the issues of climate change conversation, the private sector is somehow lagging behind, and for some strange reason. I mean, they are some of the most affected, when the climate change is impacting the global economy. So how do we make the private sector to be part and parcel of this critical conversation or dialogue, on a daily basis?
There are two ways to make them. First and foremost, you make them embrace the conversation and show them the opportunities therein in addressing climate change as a threat to their businesses. As I've outlined, what happens when it dries and there are no rivers, then there is, if it affected the whole value chain of production in our industrial area, where it's dominated by companies and industries. So really we have to create that link, and we need to have conversation. And secondly is to invest in innovation, ensure that these businesses are promoted, and they are shown that you make business out of it. So when somebody realizes that, though it is a threat, because we do business to make profits, then they are going to embrace it. And that is what is happening in the north. Look at all these wind power projects, like it's the Turkana wind power project. It's an investment of a Dutch company. So for them, they saw an opportunity to establish a wind power farm, and they are making money out of it with the KPLC, though it's of course very controversial still, and many others. And so there is massive opportunities in climate change and climate action. And that is actually the debate. We have changed the debate of a challenge into an opportunity. We provide our solutions while we are gaining out of it.
Climate change is costing the Kenyan economy about 2.3% economic growth every year. How significant is this, to a layman?
Well, and that's why I'm saying now we are promoting the bottom up, the from below kind of conversation.
This is not the bottom line, concept being
not the bottom up we are talking about. Yes, a section of politicians. But of course, it makes sense that without creating people's ownership of these conversations, assuming that these people do not have that solution, then we are not going to go far. It is going to be just a cosmetic conversation, the way it has been, and we want to change the narrative altogether. We want to tell that smallholder farmer from my village that your tea yield has reduced because it has dried up, and these are the things you are seeing. These are the impacts of climate change. We want to tell the fisher folk in Lake Victoria that the yields from your rivers and lakes have reduced because this is the impacts of climate change. We want to tell people in Mount Kenya that the rivers have dried up because these are the manifestations of climate change. We tell the coast people that all the changes you are seeing in weather are changing. The sea level rise is because of climate change. So, and they identify with it because they are within that environment. They are the stewards of the nature which we are living on. But we have removed them from the conversations. We have made the elitists, even at both civil society and even government level. We do it in Nairobi and we end it there. So we need really to trickle it down, make it be driven by the people, and that is what we are promoting as locally led climate action. You remember late last year, the World Bank signed a 150 billion Kenya shilling project called Financing Locally Led Climate Action. We hope that money will be driven by those communities, the CBOs at my level, so that they build their resilience to climate change. There is a lot of motivation. There is a lot of incentives to work at the local level. But now, with the structures which we have established, we hope that this is going to be realized, and we are going to break the barriers which are always there and obstacles, so that this money reaches the people at the local level who need it.
How do we convince, the people in the villages that climate change is real?
Well, of course, first of all, it is not dry advocacy. We need to work with them. We need to, build that solidarity. We need to go and we have a project, for instance, in Meru called To Jinwe. To Jinwe is let us lift ourselves from the ravages of climate and COVID-19. So what we did, we mobilized these farmers, and we have been working with them and looking at climate resilient and drought resistant crops like sunflower and the sorghum now, and honey, which actually can withstand the harsh climatic conditions. And you know what? They have started embracing that. So what I'm saying, rather than that calling people and going to talk with them, just dry advocacy, we use evidence-based advocacy. Based on that we share that with policymakers and tell people, can you see? Now, you cannot grow maize. There is alternative crops which we can grow, which can withstand this kind of weather. And they are embraced. We have more than 1,000 farmers. And
this is like sorghum,
millet, sunflower, and cassava. It is cassava, and it is working. So there is will for those people. We need really to identify with them, identify with their resources, identify with their realities, identify with their context. But don't go to coast and tell coastal people to grow cassava, whereas they grow fish. And so these are some of the things which we know. We need to be very, very practical in whatever we do.
What about the political class? Look, for example, Kenya will be going to the poll in about how many months from now? You know, about
less than 6 months.
Less than 6 months. We are here to hear, you know, our politicians, you know, bringing the conversation around climate change, you know, to the fore. Is our political class, you know, really concerned about, you know, climate change?
That is the challenge we have in African countries. I have interacted with colleagues from the Denmark, even in the United States, and even elsewhere in Europe. Climate change is such a topical issue that it is driving politics. It has become an election issue. The current government, Danish government in Denmark, is elected on the mandate of climate change. In Netherlands, and even in the US, the climate change movement played a very important role in the defeat of President Trump because he had denied climate change. But in Africa, we have not reached that level. Right now, climate change, because everybody is being affected, should be driving the campaigns which you are seeing. But we are talking about it. Nothing. So we are not, our politics are different because we are not issue driven. We are driven by ethnic, you know, alliances and those other petty issues which do not matter in the livelihoods of that.
So who is going to instill in the minds of our politicians the urgency to bring the conversations around climate change?
Though we have a long way to go, people like us who are convert, we want to really to build that movement. And in future, the green movement will be shaping the future of this nation, I can assure you.
Which future is this?
In 5-10 years to come, you'll see. This could not be...
Why must we wait for that long?
It is because the kind of people which we have. They will not listen to that. Those are not issues. In fact, they are not issues. We can have the best manifesto, but it just remains in paper. We want people who are committed to what they stand for. And even now, we need to be hearing about your presidential candidate. What are you going to do on climate change?
You see, last year, you know, President Uhuru Kenyatta declared, you know, the ongoing drought a national emergency in this country.
Yeah.
How is that related to the climate change that the world is going through?
You know, drought is climate. Drought actually is the manifestation of climate change. But that is how narrow we are in trying to, you know, to embrace some of these conversations. We are the leader in these conversations, but we fail really to embrace it and integrate it into our actions and conversations. That is the problem which we have. And it is a difficult conversation, but I believe that we are going to reach there one time.
One time?
Yeah.
You see, scientists are warning that if deliberate and more aggressive actions are not taken, you know, towards you know, the curbing of green gas emission, Africa is likely to become uninhabitable in the next 50 years.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
I'm not sure that we are going to be here in the next 50 years.
We may not, but
So for those who will be here, who are likely to be here, how is that likely to happen?
Well, it is going to be very difficult environment, and that's why the young people are leading this movement, because the generation which was there and the one which exists have completely denied science, they have ignored science, and they have messed up their future. So in the mobilization which we have is we have killed our past and present. So can we secure the future of the young generation and the generations to come? That's why I'm telling you, in the North, it's no joke. They have embraced it, and they have really put pressure on policymakers, and climate is a serious issue.
But we can't say the same of Africa. I mean, look at, for example, you know, young people in Africa, you know, is a very young continent, you know, demographically speaking. But when you listen to young people, the conversations around, you know, climate change is not very, very much prevalent. What we talk about is education, is good health, is jobs. How do we elevate that conversation among young people?
I think we have strategies. For instance, we have established what we are calling the Nairobi Summer School on Climate Justice. We are working with Kenyatta University and alongside other African universities universities. We end a very, very interesting school at Kenyatta University in last year, where we brought together around 800 participants from across Africa and globally. And you can see now out of that, the conversation continues, and it is mobilizing young people, and they're embracing this spirit. Us who are older enough have already lost it, I believe, and the future belongs to this. So we need really to nurture them. We need to support them so they can speak on their behalf, because we speak to them, but we don't do what we are supposed to do. So I would want to build that size of cloud of young people so that they can be able to put pressure into our government to be able to drive this agenda.
How do we also make climate change issues an integral part of our education system?
I think that there's a plan for that already. I think we are, by all purposes, by all standards, I think Kenya, we are doing a little well than other African countries.
But this is not a question of what one country is doing. Is what are we doing, collectively?
It's, the climate change law, the Climate
Change Act.
Change Act 2016. I think has made it possible for climate change to be a multi-sectoral issue. I think I remember that even the Institute for Curriculum Development, among other, even in universities, are trying to integrate climate change as an examinable subject. And I'm sure, I think that is, those are very small steps, but very vital in that direction you are talking about. Yes.
Look, in November of this year, all the eyes of the world on, especially on conversations around climate change, will be in Egypt.
Yeah.
The beautiful resort city of Sharm el-Sheikh. As Africa, what message do we want to take to Sharm el-Sheikh?
So we were, and actually that's a very good point. We were in Glasgow. We had a position for Africa. First of all, recognition of Africa as a special needs and circumstances region, that we are vulnerable, and we cannot be compared with other regions. So in terms of mitigation and adaptation, but in terms also of climate change impacts on our sectors, which are driven by nature. So this one, we lost it even at the agenda stage. We want this to be reinstated when we go to Egypt. Two, the issue of adaptation finance. There is a lot of money flowing into mitigation because that is where companies from rich countries are making profit. Climate change is not an issue of profit. It is survival. And survival is about adaptation and resilience building. We want them to double or even triple adaptation finance and put it at the same level of mitigation. So that's the other one. The other point is loss and damage. The issue of loss and damage is that we have lost, as northeastern residents, we have lost our camels and livestock out of climate change. Maasais, we have lost our livestock out of climate change. Farmers have lost their crops out of climate change. They need compensation, and that is loss and damage. So we want also to focus on that alongside other very critical issues of participation in these negotiations.
Right. Do you think Africa is crafting a collective message that they are going to take to Sharm el-Sheikh?
Certainly. We're in conversations, both civil society and governments. The African group of negotiators now under the chair of Zambia, the CAUSC, Committee of Heads of States and Governments on Climate Change, led by President Kenyatta, the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment, led by South Africa, and the African Union, of course now, led by Senegal. So all those actors are working together to front a single African position, and I can assure you it will be African people's position, not the African position as we are using it. we want to own that process as citizens.
Even as we march towards in the November's meeting, how do we make the conversation in Sharm el-Sheikh here in Africa become more relevant to us as a continent?
It's articulating our issues, our narratives, what climate means to that farmer, to that pastoralist, to that fisher folk, and making them speak for themselves. So we are going to take most of them there so that these people can hear what this means to our farmers. Yes.
And how do we ensure that Sharm el-Sheikh COP27 doesn't become another center of what we call deodorized discourses?
Well, you know, this is global geopolitics. It's negotiations. We are going to try our best, but I can assure you, Africa is determined now.
It's determined?
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
I know you're going to be in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Yeah.
I'm also likely to be there, God willing.
Yes.
And what do you expect at the end of the day to come out of the COP27 in Egypt?
What I expect is a decision on adaptation finance, a decision on loss of damage, and then, of course, the aspirations for Africa, which are anchored on those, which actually are responsive to African realities and aspirations.
That is going to happen?
Yeah.
Very good.
Hopefully.
Yes. Mwenda, thank you very much. Any other comments that you have to make before I let you?
Well, nothing, but I think we are in a situation where we have really even to appeal to our leaders. Really, my appeal is to the President Kenyatta. The hope of Africa is on your hands. And we assure us as African civil society, and I have the non-state actors that we are behind you, but don't let us down. I think it is very difficult, it's difficult negotiations, but of course it is led by a very determined person, a seasoned Pan-Africanist, and we hope we are going to see that Pan-Africanism once you are able to rally behind yourself, key leaders who are going to really support the African voice. I know that we are comparing President Kenyatta's chairmanship with the late Mele Zenawi when we were going to the Copenhagen in COP15. I think we saw that vigor. We have never seen the vigor like that one, but we hope that now with President Kenyatta at the helm, we are going to see the visibility of Africa and African issues well articulated during that period in November.
Very good. Mwenda Mithika, thank you very much for finding time to be with us this morning, and of course for helping us articulate issues around climate change. Thank you for finding time to be with us, of course.
Thank you.
Well, our conversation has been around climate change. Listen, climate change is real. It's one of the biggest threats to our existence now. It is more important than elections and re-elections. We must find a solution, and young people must become part of this movement. And I end this conversation on climate change by quoting Archbishop Desmond Tutu Thalate, who just passed away last month. And this is what he said, actually. 25 years ago, people could be excused for not knowing much or doing much about climate change. Today, we have no excuse. That marks the end of our conversation on climate change on this show right now. But coming up next, we are conversing around how to make women more proactive in STEM courses. That conversation is coming up right here, right now, after the break.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723 892 654 or 0734 780 124.
she's not as qualified a wife as you think she is.
What did you say?
Pinky, you're so beautiful.
You've said that numerous times already.
I'm telling the truth, really.
Jack, Pinky bought this for you. I'm guessing you like it.
Jack, didn't you say you don't like fish?
What do you want, Jenny? You did this on purpose, right? You happy to put me in this awkward situation?
Jenny. Hi.
Jack?
Mundos divididos por una sombra de traición.
I'm not going to leave this town until I've made sure that your alleged love doesn't result in Mariella's ruin.
Well, right now, I'm only interested in protecting her.
Well, you better be.
Why are you going there?
I have the whereabouts of the second witness. I was wondering if he's the one that we are looking for.
So what then, boss? Are you gonna let Mariella continue bothering you?
No, I won't let her. Actually, I'm working on a permanent solution. But this time, I don't need to kill anyone. What is it?
I don't care because he doesn't love me. He'd do it out of obligation. Stop fooling yourself, Lore.
Put that gun away! This man is not allowed in here. I ordered you to put it away. I said he's not allowed. Put it away!
Lying heart.
Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
Kuna usuli ataka kufanya utoto sasa. Mara kwanza nilikuja nikamkosa. Na hii mara ya pili pia hayupo.
Nani aliyokupa ruhusa unapiga mipicha?
Mimi ni lawyer wa governor na nimetumwa.
Waziri kunichekesha. Kila siku wanipamba. Utanipamba lini? Toa sasa hii 50k.
Kuja kupata aume hapa, kuja kupata kazi. Fanyeni kazi, hakuna kupetia. Wewe kupetia kwanza ni wapi?
Niliambiwa niende hospitalini kwa sababu kijana wangu alipatikana akitaka kujinyonga.
Nataka kunyonga. Mkoro wa mine nimekuwa nikuchapiaje kusuri batu kae.
Nishakwambia mara nyingi usiniite mkoro.
Wewe ni mkoro jo.
Riba sijui interest ya shule.
Ongea Kiswahili straight.
Ongea senga ambayo hata wewe mwenyewe utaelewa. Mimi nakuuliza, hii mambo ilikuwa inatokea ukiwa wapi? Wewe wayo.
Acha kuniuliza nilikuwa wapi?
Wazazi wote tukae chini na watoto wetu. Uwe unafiki wa mtoto, umuulize mtoto kama kuna matatizo inaendelea pale shuleni. Imekuwa ni too much, mheshimiwa.
Watu watafufuliwa kutoka katika makaburi yao siku ya Kiyama. Leo duniani nasema al-yawmun amal duna jazaa. Leo watu wanafanya matendo duniani, hakuna malipo, na siku ya Kiyama jazaa duna al-amal, ni malipo, hakuna matendo siku ya Kiyama. Idhnillahi ta'ala, tujizatiti katika kutekeleza kile ambacho kitatuwezesha kuishi maisha bora na kuandaa akhira ambayo itakuwa ni ya kutufurahisha biidhnillahi ta'ala.
إن الغريب غريب اللحد والكفن
Well, for the last 1 hour, we have been having this conversation around climate change, and now it is time to change gears and talk about the inclusion of women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You know, we are going to feed you with some very interesting numbers here, so get ready to do a little bit of munching of those numbers, because this conversation is around empowering women and girls, you know, to dive deep into the world of STEMs. Joining us this morning is Romana Rajput. She's a country general manager for InterSwitch East Africa, Kenya. Thank you very much indeed, Romana, for joining us here. And of course, next to Romana is Jack Ngari. He is the Microsoft Africa Development Center. Thank you very much, Jack, for your time. And I want to start with Rajput. You see, on the 11th of this month, the world celebrated the 7th International Day of Women and Girls in Science. What conversation came out of that of that day?
So I think what is apparent is that there are not enough women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, what we call STEM. And we need to sort of put an emphasis more on trying to encourage women to get into these fields. This is no longer a male-dominated field, as it has been traditionally, because today women are very capable of leading in the areas of STEM, and we need from their very basic education for them to be encouraged to take up STEM subjects so that they can support our economy as we are developing. So
when you say that we do not have enough women and girls, you know, in our STEM ecosystem, what exactly do you mean, and how many do we need before we can say now they're enough?
I don't know if there's a way to say there is enough, but what I can say is that we certainly need to move the numbers from less than 30%, which it is today. That women who are taking STEM subjects up to tertiary level, it's less than 30%. I'm happy to say the company that I work for, InterSwitch, over 40% of the workforce are women. Yeah.
And that's a deliberate effort.
I'll say that we don't discriminate between men and women. If you're capable of doing the job and you can deliver, then we want you to be part of our team. And that's the important message. We have to stop sort of, how do I say, labeling that girls do this and boys do this, because girls are socialized from very young, you know, to be maybe nurturers only, but they can also contribute to society.
And so, I mean, how did you reach a 40% mark, you know, in a country whereby, you know, women make up less than 30% of all people in the STEM courses without, you know, having deliberate efforts and actions?
I'm happy to say that there are a lot more women who are coming out in STEM. So when the opportunities present themselves, they'll apply for the jobs. And when they compete against the men, they qualify. And so we give them the opportunity. So we don't make it an obvious conscious thing. We just believe that men and women are equal in the workforce, and as long as they can deliver, they can get the chance. So we don't discriminate that, oh, we'd prefer to have guys, we're in a technology field, they'll work longer and harder. That isn't true. Women work just as long and hard to deliver the services.
And those are the
for
stereotypes
technology
that we need to address, and I'm sure we are going to deal with them here.
Yes.
Jack Ngari, as the MD of Microsoft Africa Development Center, I want to hear from you. How hard is it, you know, to recruit women in the STEM industry?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to take a step back, Obram, to answer your question and let the audience appreciate why are STEM courses so important to the country and Africa at large. You know, the median age for Africa is 19 years old. So we have as many people below 19 as we have above 19. And if you look at the whole world where it's moving towards a technology-driven world. So if you expect to get traditional jobs, you know, like for example, you know, in the tea industry, tea pickers, you know, have been replaced by machinery that's actually doing this. So you're seeing a lot of movement towards technology-driven type jobs. And that is why we need to make the investment now as a country into STEM-driven courses that prepare our young people for the future Otherwise, you know, they will be disenfranchised. They'll be consumers of technology, but not necessarily building it and exporting it. Countries like India and China, biggest exports is technology. Now, let's take it to a sub-segment, women. Now, again, we have invested heavily in our education systems in male-driven type teaching for STEM courses. We haven't empathized with our girls and figured out how they think and how we can make it more attractive to them. And so even the positive role models they have are not so many. And so you find they can identify with a woman, let's say, who's in technology as much as they can identify with several, let's say, lawyers who are actually doing very well for themselves. And so for us as Microsoft, you know, we established ourselves here in 2018, viewing the fact that Africa is one of the most promising continents where we can actually get engineers. As you know, Microsoft builds, you know, your Windows, you know, your cloud systems, and we are embedded into almost everything you do in your daily lives. And so for us, we came here with the intention to invest in engineering talent that exists in the African continent. Now, it's quite interesting. If we release a job post for, let's say, a developer of some sort, we'll probably get about 200 applicants. Yeah. And out of the 200 applicants, you know, probably less than 20% are women who would like to join us. And that's also a startling, you know, statistic for us, that we have to do more in investing in our education systems and in the training of girls to ensure that they take advantage of these opportunities.
And do you think that is happening?
So, you know, I think there are lots of players who need to work together on this. It's not just, for example, the government to invest in education. I think it's all of us, including us as industry players. You know, we have to do our part in ensuring that we impart the skill sets to the women who are actually aspiring to be in the technology field. The best paying jobs in the future will be technology type jobs. I mean, interesting statistic, you know, at the back of an envelope, if you look at who are the top richest people in the world, you know, are technology people. And so we have to make sure that we get more, and they're men. So we have to do a lot more better job in terms of getting more women into that cadre of the top richest people, and hopefully one of our Kenyan girls will get there. Yeah.
Look, I mean, I was interacting with some data from the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, whereby they were saying that only 35% of science, technology, engineering and mathematics students in higher education globally are women. How do we deal with that gender disparity, Rajput?
All right, so one of the things that InterSwitch is doing is we have started a program called InterSwitch Spark, which is identifying Form 3 students who are studying STEM subjects, and they're between the ages of 14 and 17. These are the formative years of their development, and we're making STEM fun. So we're putting out a quiz show that you can watch on YouTube as well if you follow InterSwitch Spark. And what we're doing is we put them through the paces. We ask the teachers in the schools to look for these students who are top of their class. We take them through a sort of a test, and then we narrow it down to a few of them, about 50 or so, and then we take them through a quiz show that is televised. So we want to make STEM fun. We don't want it to seem like boring, difficult, hard stuff. We wanted them to see that life is about science, it's about technology, it's about engineering, it's about mathematics, and it's fun, and other kids can watch the show and they can learn. And then when we get the top 3 winners, we give them a scholarship to help them with their further education. So we're trying to do our part, if you like, in enabling both boys and girls. Now, the last program we had was back in 2019, and the winner was a girl. Yeah, and it's amazing. And we've had another show this year, and the winner will be announced. But the thing is that we are encouraging.
Hoping it's going to be a girl.
Well, that is to be seen. But basically, what we've seen is girls can do it.
Girls can do it.
Girls can do it.
Let me hear from you. I mean, this is what you're doing at the micro level. But how do we elevate this kind of conversations, this kind of effort, you know, at the macro level?
Yeah, so it is important. Why are we here today to discuss this? Because we need to tell people about it. So every angle, from social media, from television programs, from businesses holding forums, for young people, celebrating women in technology always. I mean, we have to do our part wherever we can. There is no place that there's no stone we should leave unturned to look for areas of where we've got to address this. We've got to be talking about it. It's got to be a subject of discussion. When we discuss it and we become intentional about making a change, and us women also need to come out there and talk about it and talk to our young nieces, our daughters, our cousins, you know. Our grandmothers didn't have this chance, but we do. And like Jack said, the world is going towards technology, whether you like it or not. Look at the Asian tigers today. Where are they? They're very far ahead. If you look at South Korea, if you look at Japan, and if you look at the countries in the Far East, China for sure, they're very far ahead in technology. Africa, as he said, is a young continent. We have the potential. There's 1 billion plus people on this continent.
Actually, 1.2 people.
1.2, there you go. And a lot of those are women, and half or maybe more than half are women.
Actually, 55%.
55%, that is so. If that ratio was to go, then even in STEM and technology and jobs today, it should go the same way. That's what I believe.
Jack, you know, from where you sit or from where you stand, does it disturb you that you know, less than 30% of our researchers are women in Kenya, yet we want to become a research-driven economy?
Absolutely. I mean, it is quite startling. If you look at overall, you know, STEM-type courses, and here we're including things such as food science into all that, you know, and engineering, you have a figure of 35% who graduate every year across our universities, and then you have how many of them who actually do go ahead and practice and get opportunities is 18%. You know, so you have researchers who are less than 30%. You know, it's quite startling that we don't give, not only do we train them really well, but we also don't give them the opportunity to practice what we train them. And so those are some of the things that organizations like us and Microsoft investing here are trying to remedy. We have something called the Microsoft Research Labs here, and they actually Microsoft Africa Research Institute, and they are hiring PhD holders, and I'm glad to say that I think about 60% are women in that team. So we are doing our small way of doing it. I just want to circle back to the question you asked, Roman, also. At a macro level, what are the things we can do? And I'll tell you what, O'Brien, back in the days when I graduated from computer science, if you had a passion for engineering, building, not consuming or being an admin, you know, or carrying laptops around and fixing for people their laptops, you know, those type of jobs were available, but to build the actual operating system that people use were not there. So some of us had the privilege to go outside the country to go and practice what we learned. In this era where you have people like Microsoft investing now and saying, hey, listen, you people are talented, and we are going to make sure that we give you the opportunity to practice your innovations for us and build global products. That, to me, is an important milestone in terms of being positive role models for all of us. So you can imagine, I mean, people who look like me and you and Rajput, you know, are actually building Windows operating system. You know, what does that say to our kids? They'll be looking at it, girls, boys, they'll be all looking and saying, wow, if they can do it, I can do it as well. And so I think from a macro level, just having positive reinforcements for girls that, hey, you can also get to this point and do better than us, because the idea is for the next generation to go way better than we have, not take them backwards, is one of those things that I think investments like what Microsoft is doing, I'm sure others are going to come, because they always tend to follow Microsoft, will spur the industry to also encourage more women to get into tech.
Look, Rajput, we have the Konza Technopolis, you know, we have the Jomo Kenyatta University of Technology, and many other institutions, you know, that are dedicated towards you know, the training of STEM courses. We're also seeing the establishment of KAIST, you know, Kenya Institute of Advanced, you know, something like that, you know, at Konza Technopolis. So how do we enlighten girls and tell them, look here, there are these institutions, there are these opportunities that we believe that you can pursue and make it in life?
Yeah, so it comes right from the grassroots. How are we socialized as girls? I'm happy to tell you, O'Brien, that I'm one of 2 daughters. My father was the eldest of 10, 9 boys, 1 girl. So maybe because he only had one sister, he didn't know how to tell us, don't do this or don't do this. I did everything. I didn't just play with dolls. I also had those small matchbox toys of cars. So they were vehicles. I used to play with them. I used to climb trees. I used to do all kinds of things because that's how you discover your world. And we have to allow girls to grow up and discover the world around them. This is very, very important. And they must be made to feel that they can do anything, that there is no limitation. Once we empower our children in this way, then we are heading in the right direction. For me, it starts at the grassroots. Me as a parent, what am I doing to empower my daughters to believe in themselves and that they can pursue a career in STEM and it's possible. So if I've done it, so could they, if they choose to. They have no choice in this world today. We have to use technology. You cannot operate in this world today without it. So it is very important that as parents, we start, as individuals, we lead, as educators, we enforce, as business corporations like Microsoft, we encourage, like InterSwitch, across the continent, not just in any one place, but also the governments need to have policies. There is UNICEF that does a lot of work with girls and STEM education as well, and empowering women. So all these organizations, I haven't named all of them, but the tertiary universities and the lot, we have to keep reinforcing this discussion around empowering women to believe in themselves, because it is a question of confidence. You have to believe in yourself that you can do it, that you will do it.
Very good. Jack, from your observation, when you look at the whole STEM ecosystem in Kenya, do you think it is crafted in a way that it becomes conducive for women and girls to thrive?
Absolutely not yet. I mean, it's an evolution. We've come a long way, to be fair. You know, from the days when you'd find a computer science class, I remember when I'd walk into, for example, a university and speak to the computer science students, you'd see out of a class of 60, you probably find 5 girls. And now you're slowly seeing a march towards more of them coming in to STEM type courses. Beyond that, the industry as it is, you know, you see quite a few number of women leaders in STEM type, you know, careers. And so it's a march towards you know, parity. As Romana rightly put, I mean, if we have a gender balance in our population, every single role must have that sort of reflection of what our population is, whether it's from, you know, gender, whether it's from disabilities, it's from whatever. But I mean, it has to have that representation. And so it's a march towards that. And you know, like I said, the interventions that the industry is playing, InterSwitch and their programs, Microsoft their programs, a few other corporates are doing the same thing. I'd like to see a lot more coordination between us all, you know, in terms of coming together and pooling our resources and making sure that we do things that are not at cross purposes. But having said that, you know, it's better we do our initiatives than do nothing at all. So we're still in the march towards that sort of parity. Yeah.
And you know, there's this phenomenon that is called the leaky pipes, you know, whereby you have women, you know, who have pursued STEM courses, and as they move higher, you know, up the corporate ladder, you know, they abandon these courses. And how do we ensure that women and girls who pursue STEM courses, you know, stick to the end, right, put?
It takes resilience, and it comes back to what I said in the beginning: confidence and belief in yourself and belief in what you're doing. We need to build people who believe in the future that they are building. Okay, they don't want to reach a stage where they say it's too hard. I've reached up to this level, I'm going to give up. Why am I giving up? Because in the corporate world, maybe it is very male dominated, even in the board level. So even at board level, we need to have more women represented there, because they will contribute to making decisions that considers women's needs and women's needs in STEM. So it's not enough if all we're doing, and then even at government level, we don't even have women representation in legislation, in the people making decisions for our country. So it goes up all the way. So you're talking about your corporates. Okay, so we have the balance of men and women working, it's improving. But how is it working in the board level? How is it working at government level? We have to ask ourselves. Today in the world, you can see more women leaders coming up. than maybe at any time in history. There are more women in leadership. And women see things. We see things very differently from men because we understand the world differently through our eyes. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just different. Okay? And so we've got to fix that. We've got to fix it at board level. We've got to fix it at government level as well.
But how do you actually fix that, at the board level? And for example, I mean, Kenya is still a young country that is underdeveloped, that is still developing. But when you look at the number of engineers in this country, when you talk to engineers, Board of Kenya, they'll tell you that less than 15% of engineers in this country are women. So how do you include them, or how do you mainstream them into the boardroom, whereas the number is still very, very small?
So I say this is a collective responsibility. We've got to keep encouraging this. So the men have to give more space to women to come into the boardroom. If they are male-dominated. I met a woman who drove a taxi, and I always make a point whenever I'm talking to taxi driver, Uber drivers, etc. I ask them, so my dear, why do you drive this taxi? What did you train to do? And I met a lady who was a mechanical engineer, and she's driving a taxi. And the reason she's driving the taxi, she says, I have to feed my kids. And I have no other choice but to do that now. But I'm a trained mechanical engineer from the Polytechnic. Yep. She has the potential to do things. So sometimes those opportunities need to be opened up for people to apply and to be able to get jobs. As you know, sometimes, let's be honest, in the workforce, people get jobs not because of what they know, but who they know.
Unfortunately.
So, Jack, we're never going to compete.
And actually, even before we got there, I mean, we must move from a position of competing, to a position of complementing each other.
Correct.
Because at the end of the day, we have to match together, whether men or women. And you were saying something, and before you say something about what Rajput was saying, I also want to hear from you, as men. Have we played a role in suppressing the number of women and girls who are taking STEM courses?
So just to complement what Romana said earlier, so I think also a big part of it is the work environment we present to women overall. I think that's where a lot of women fall off. If they get married and have kids, we don't create that environment that accepts that there are responsibilities she has over and beyond, based on our society, just the workplace. For example, one typical example I'm sure the viewers can appreciate is that if let's say the house help leaves and their kids to be taken care of, most likely, the way society is built, you and I, who probably wouldn't be there, it's mom who will stay at home and take care of the kids. But does the work environment appreciate that's a reality of life and say, okay, you can work from home, we will give you the kind of support you need, and not call her every 2 minutes and say, why is this report delayed, or whatever it is. And so we have to create that conducive environment, mothers' rooms in institutions, some organizations have gone further and now creating creches where if something happens, you can actually bring your kids to work. So I think as a society and as the industry, as all companies, we need to face the reality of what is conducive, what's a conducive working environment for women, and create it for them. I mean, we have created it for men. Some go to the extent of creating, bars and stuff where after work you can go and socialize, which is awesome, and anyone can do that. But creates things that are geared towards women. Now, to your question, have we suppressed that in itself? What I've just given as an example, we are suppressing that because we're not creating a way where a girl who says, look, I want to complete this, if I want to get married, that I'll still be happy being a software engineer. If I get kids, I can still be a great software engineer because these companies have created that environment for me to do so. You find that at some point she'll start moving towards other type of disciplines, not in what she studied for. And so it's because we've not created that roadmap and that environment. So we have contributed as men. What we are trying to do now is we need to become allies, and empathize with what women go through and create that environment for them.
And it's good that we're having this conversation, and both of you are from the private sector, because there exists a major pay disparity between women who have pursued STEM courses or people who are being hired and they are women who have done STEM courses. comparing them with the men, how do we close this pay disparity?
Okay, I want to say something. I have been a very fortunate person. I worked in a bank where we were only 3 women in technology, okay? But I will tell you, because of the policies of the bank, they could not discriminate whether I was a man or a woman. If my grade was such and my ability was such, I was paid equal pay for the work I did. So I consider myself one of the very few lucky people, because I've heard different stories. But I think in Kenya especially, I like to think we don't look at, is this a man or a woman? How much are we paying them? No. Is this a worker? We are paying the worker. We're not looking at the gender. This is very important for institutions to do. And to add to what Jack said, something very important, like creating the environment where a woman could bring her child because she has no house help, those creches, she has got a young baby. I'm happy to tell you, when we got into this pandemic situation, one of the tools we had to use was Microsoft Teams. And I have to tell you, I had to thank our group technology CTO and said, this is one of the best things that you have provided for us, because now we could collaborate and still be at home and we could still do the job. And for many of the women in our groups, this was so helpful. So you can come onto a call, you do your work, but some emergency has come up in the home, and you're able to go and service that emergency. So technology is enabling us, is actually making the playing field a bit level. I was very fortunate myself. I have a wonderful husband, O'Brien, I have to tell you, that I could go to work. God. Yes, and I could know that he will pick the kids, he will take care of things, and there were people to support. I live in Kenya. I'm lucky. I could get help. But I know that many women struggle with this. Not everybody is as fortunate. So I'm grateful to technology because it has enabled and empowered a lot of women to have that work-life balance. They can still work and they can still be at home if need be. They don't have to come to the office and try to navigate our beautiful expressway that is coming up, that is causing a lot of traffic jams. We love it, but we know it's going to take time to finish. So we use the internet or the superhighway of technology to get us there to do the job. And that's what makes it so exciting. So technology can actually find solutions. That is true. We need to create enabling environments, but technology will help us find solutions. And I don't know if Jack agrees, but I think the future is that there will be a lot of working from home kind of situations going on in the future. And some employers are going to give up the real estate of expensive offices to kind of get that blend and balance. And this can be a plus for the ladies. I mean, for the women in our organizations, for sure.
Jack, you were talking about the future being technology. I mean, and that is something that is known, that the world is moving to a technology-driven economy. But in a world whereby less than 3 out of 10 AI professionals are women, are we at risk of leaving the women force behind?
Absolutely, and it's not only just leaving the women force behind, but leaving the women population behind. Some of you may have seen the video of this new AI that was released by one of the big tech companies, and it couldn't recognize black people. Yeah, it was big. Why? Because it was a huge uproar. In fact, one of them actually, another AI engine, actually associated black people with a certain animal, which was really, really not good. And so you see, when you don't include a section of the population of the world in designing and building the technology, you disenfranchise the rest of the whole segment of that of that population. And so if we do not incorporate a lot of these AI scientists who are women, and the way everything is moving. I mean, now you go to an airport, they scan your face, and that's it. You pass through the gates. I mean, that is AI already recognizing you. And so if we do not do this sort of things of bringing in more women who can empathize with what are the things that need to happen for a woman to thrive in an AI-driven world, for example, then you'll find future technologies will have bugs, will not be accepted, and could actually violate a lot of human rights of women if we don't take care in that aspect.
So what does the public and private, who has to do what, between the private and the public sector?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I see it as three. I see it as, obviously, the government has a big role to play in this, in terms of ensuring that they create laws and they create those sort of rules of the game. That say, like we did once upon a time in terms of, for example, in Parliament, the gender rule has been existing. Even in corporates, you have to put that in. We created rules for people living with disabilities that our walkways must have, must be disability. We don't follow them. So we have those sort of rules that need to be created. The industry, we as players in the industry, private sector, also have a role to play, because we can't disenfranchise one section of the community. And there's one last constituent that we really must talk about, and those are parents. Romana gave example of her dad, who empowered her, who believed in her. We as parents and parents who are watching this, you play a big role in influencing your child's life. And so if you give them the right kind of mindset, especially the girls, the right kind of mindset, I tell you what, they will do you proud. Speaking on self-evangelism here, I'm yet to meet a software engineer anywhere in the world who's jobless. I am yet to meet one. I really am. And if you're jobless and you're a software engineer, please get my contacts from O'Brien and send me your CV. so if we empower these girls, they will do you proud. So please push them to software engineering.
But also, I mean, how then do we create deliberate efforts, even at our curriculum level, that we craft curriculum that drives women and girls, into taking STEM courses? Because we cannot just leave it to the masses of nature.
Absolutely. So our education system is one of the most important elements that we have. We need to have an education system that empowers STEM and empowers women to appreciate STEM. I remember when I was in school, a lot of the girls would say, oh, maths is really boring, they didn't find it exciting, or it's very difficult. But that's because it depends how you are taught it and how you're socialized from a very young age. So starting right from kindergarten, I always say these things start from the very beginning. Exploring the world around you is very important, because this is part of science. This is a part of learning about your environment, appreciating all the things that are there. We must get our education system right. If we are going to compete with the big Asian tigers, we've got to absolutely get our education system right. And it might mean that we need to study other countries that have done this successfully and then incorporate that into our education curriculum. We've also got to remember that teachers are a very important part of the education system. And the reason I'm raising this is I was shocked to learn that in a country like Finland, for example, to teach children, you have to have a master's degree, because they believe that only a very well-educated person should be teaching the next generation. Now, ask yourself, who are the people who are becoming teachers in Kenya today? Are they master's degree students, who are master's degree students in the university? I don't think so. I think those are the people, or if you get a lower grade, you'll go into teaching. You get a higher grade, you'll go into something else. So we don't respect teaching as a profession. And if we don't respect teaching as a profession, how on earth are we going to then create the next generation of brilliant STEM students? How? Boys or girls at this point, yeah? So for me, what's very important is that we take education very seriously. We get our education system right. I think it's gone through a few iterations in Kenya. And do we have the right education system that is going to help this country meet its needs for development in the future? I worry very much about that, because I don't think we've quite got it. And we're on the journey, but we need to take this very, very seriously.
And you have brought up, something very interesting, because when you look at statistics, out of the more than 100,000 graduates, who enter the job market, in Kenya, less than 30% are in the science field. And out of the 30%, less than 10% are women. So how then do we change these in a country whereby we want to boost manufacturing to about 15% of our GDP? We want to become a newly industrialized nation, by the year 2030, which is about 80 years from now. Jack.
Yeah, I mean, let me depress you a little bit more on your stats.
You want to do that?
so you have a million kids turning 18 every year in this country. 1 million. The job availability every year, no matter, from what the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics says, is max 200,000 every year. So 800,000 every year. Where are they all going? And that's the biggest question. Out of the 200,000, it's the number you talked about, less than 10% in STEM who are actually being hired. Less, significantly lower. And so it is quite a daunting challenge for all of us. And we need to take it on as a society and figure it out. What we are playing our part in doing is availing the opportunities. And that's what I think for people like me, and I guess Romana, who's a GM as well, is how do we create these opportunities for those who are coming out? Now, we can only do so if the talent pipeline is also addressed. So, for example, like I told you, the conversion rate for software engineers in Kenya, this is just generally speaking, is if you do 15 interviews, you'll probably get 3 people. And then out of the 3 people, 0.8 is women. And the reason why is because it's a statistical number. So you find that less than a third are women. This conversion rate of 15 to 3 needs to be addressed. That means we're churning out people in STEM courses as well who are not addressing what the industry wants. So problem number 1 we need to fix. So a lot of partnership between industry and academia is happening. I recently saw in the newspaper, I don't know how true it is, but I saw in the newspaper that government is going to attach funding to universities based on the jobs that their graduates get. And I think that's a good metric, because you could be training people on archaic things that, you walk into Microsoft and we look at you and we're like, okay, that was something for 20 years ago. We are dealing with customer needs now. So we need to bridge that gap between industry and academia to absorb them in. And then beyond that is also addressing what Roman said, how do you teach girls STEM to make sure that they thrive in it as well? They like it, the way they are wired, the way they think, they feel like this is something that's relevant to them. The good news in this is that it's not unique to Kenya. I've gone to Asia, to Europe, to the US. The numbers of software engineers for example, in Europe is 20%. 80% is men. And with all the advancements, they still are struggling with that. But I think it's an opportunity for Africa to show them how things are done right. Because we show the world many things that are done right, from mobile money to many other things. So we'll show them this is how you actually include women in the workplace. Yeah.
And you have brought about the issue of academia vis-a-vis what the market needs. And I was having a conversation with the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. And one of the biggest concerns why we're having a major shortage of engineers in Kenya is because our training is still based on the 70s model. We are yet to upgrade to start training engineers who are going to meet today's need. So, Romana, how then do we get there?
So like I said, it's a very conscious effort. You've got to learn from people who've done it successfully. So there's many examples around the world that you can go and see how have other people done it. And we need to then say, what do we need to do? And understand how the education system works. And for me, it comes down to, there has to be political will to do this. When you are, our country, the government's job is to plan for the future. Yeah, so they have to look into the future. To look into the future, they have to look at people or other countries that plan like this. People like China don't plan for 5 and 10 years. They plan for 50, 100 years. And they execute those plans. And what you're seeing is in the growth and expansion of China, in the expressway I just made, you see them everywhere. It's because they had a deliberate plan, which they put in place, and they followed it through. So we need to plan better. As Kenyans, we need to plan as the entire African continent, we have a big problem with planning. We see everything just here, the immediate need for now.
But we have Vision
can't.
2030. Which
Yes,
was
we have Vision
conceived
2030.
in the year 2010.
Yes, which is a great start. Don't get me wrong, and I'm sure they're making some great inroads. But we have to keep doing this, because now we're already reached 2022. Where's the next plan for 2050? I'm just saying to that. And then we need to look at Vision 2030 and say, well, this is what we said we would do. And, you know, do those KPIs like we do in the business and say, did we achieve this? And if not, what did we learn? Because I have learned from running many projects, if you do not learn from your mistakes, you'll keep making them over and over and over again. Actually, so we've got to learn.
There is a quote that if you do not learn from your mistakes, you end up repeating the same mistakes.
Absolutely.
Look, for example, you know, the workforce, in the Kenya's health workforce, I mean, you have a situation whereby 80% of the workforce are female. But when you look at the executive level, only 20% are women. Why would we have this kind of a situation, Jack?
Yeah. So first of all, you know, in the health sector, when you say 80% are women, you know, that's a very good example of positive reinforcement that women can do it. So many of them come into that field because they see other women there. So, you know, one brings another and another and another and another. So I hope we can replicate that in our more STEM type courses where we get more women now saying, I can do it. So I head there and have positive role models. Now, the flip side of that is that we kind of stopped there and didn't promote them to the point where they're now actually making managerial decisions and making sure that they're driving the course of our healthcare here. Maybe if they did, we put more of them there, would do a lot better job in maternal health, in child mortality, etc. So because they are the ones who actually appreciate what goes on. Look, I think picking the health sector would be probably a good example, but we can replicate it, of course, even in the private sector, as Romana said. How many of them are in the boardrooms? I think it's one of those things that we say we have to create a condition or an environment where we actually promote more women. But at the same time, men, we need to be more allies. We need to speak up more. For women, you know, if you know that it's a woman who's actually good for the job, you know, please speak up and be an advocate for her, because what she goes through is not necessarily what you go through. I'm not saying that men go through an easier time, and that's a fallacy. But it's not the same, and we have to create that environment that makes sure that women actually get more empowered. I mean, if you look at a population like us, you know, the boy child is probably given more opportunities from a young level. Even the pride of the family, speaking the truth, is more towards that, and we have to face it as a culture. So we have to not be equal, but you know, equity. You know, make sure that we push them a bit higher than to get what they want to achieve. Yeah.
And it's proper that you have brought the issue of you know, cultural into this conversation, because I mean, when you go to the rural areas, you know, what are the chances that you know, a family is likely to support a child, a girl child who plans to become an engineer, for example, or a software engineer? What are the chances?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I addressed your audience. You know, I said the parents are the first place where you need to empower the mindset of your children, both boys and girls, but more so. Know that the challenges a girl child will face is significantly higher, and so we need to do a better job there. And also, as us as a culture, you know, one of the things that I've heard some of my software engineers say is that they don't understand why there's such a parity between women and men. Why? Because for them, for example, their sisters go to see their parents more than even the men do. And they take care. Who takes their parents to hospital? It's the girls. You know, for us, we send the money and that's it. You know, we're good. So I think there's also that sort of thing that we have to come to the reality of how things are done and create that environment for girls. Yeah.
Romana, I also want to hear from you. I mean, because, you know, we are in Africa, and somebody says Africa is our business, and we can't run away from that fact. But you know, how do we then nurture, you know, and inculcate a culture of strength and nurturing women who are going to, or nurturing girls who are going to venture into the world of STEM? Because let's face it, if a bulb is broken at home, who is more likely to be told to fix it? Is it a boy or a girl? So how do we deal with those
challenges?
Exactly.
Yeah. So like I said, it starts with you and me. What are we doing today? We're raising awareness. Awareness is extremely important. If we don't talk about the problems in our society, they'll never get addressed. If they're always kept on the back burner and we don't talk about them, then they'll always remain problems that are never solved. So the first thing is to speak up and say we have a problem. Once we admit we have a problem, then we can start to look for ways to address it. And one of the ways we're addressing it is awareness, telling people this is a problem, we need to do something about it. Everyone has a role to play. The opportunities exist. So the second thing is that the girls must see there's opportunities exist. They must see role models there who are succeeding in this field and succeeding and doing great things. And they say, how did you do it? You're a woman. And you tell them and you share your stories. This is very important. So we must empower the next generation as the women we are. We must lead by example. This is extremely important. I'm very happy to hear Jack speak today about how much work there is to do, because there is a lot. I do not take for granted for all the people who are putting their efforts together, whether it's government, business, individuals, educators, everybody is doing this. We are on a journey, is what I can say. So if we get dads like Jack and yourself or Brian, who see things differently, the next generation will be different. I am sure of it. But so also, we can only improve.
But also, this is also a challenge to women, I mean, who have made it in the STEM courses. I mean, have they come up with mentorship courses, mentorship programs, for young people?
I'd like to think anybody in leadership today is a mentor. I got a huge shock when I was talking to a young lady who is a software developer, Jack, I just want to mention. And she had an issue. She's a Scrum Master, and that's the term we use for a team that's leading, the development of a product. And she says, I have an issue, Auntie, with being called Scrum Master. I don't want to be called Scrum Master. And I said, why? Because I'm a woman, I lead 24 men, and I want them to respect me. And a master is a male-dominated word. So I asked her, so what word would you like to be used? And she said, and her boss agreed. It was very interesting. She's called Scrum Queen.
Scrum Queen.
Yes. So on a light note, we are empowering ourselves that we are queens of our areas of focus in technology and STEM. And we want to be recognized for it. So we're speaking up.
Because time is almost well spent here. I want to hear from Jack. I mean, what is the role of men in uplifting the well-being and the welfare of women and girls in STEM?
Yeah, I think it's number one, we need to speak up more for them. That's for sure, because I mean, the more you have more allies in something, the more you're able to achieve more. And so we need to do that. And just piggybacking on also what Romana said, I think again, if you're a woman who's in STEM type courses, join one of those initiatives to mentor other girls. One of the good example I give the women folk in Microsoft is, people have gone to study E10, where our marathon runners come from. Scientists have gone, taken their blood, mixed it up, trying to figure out why are these guys so good? Is it the water they drink? Is it the climate? Is it the tea they drink? What is it that makes them so good? But it's power of the mindset. When one boy saw, the first marathon runner win, the next one saw it, the next one, the mindset was like, hey, we are the best and we can do this. And so the same thing with women. When you have more positive mentors reinforcing your mind, it becomes easier for you because you're like, hey, I can do this as well. And also the society accepts it as overall. When I see a software engineer who's a woman coming in, I'm like, okay, would this possibly be Kipchoge? That I'm hiring here. For software engineering, because there was one who passed through me a couple of years ago and did an awesome job. So that sort of thing has to be built within it, and all of us have a role to play in it.
Romana, finally from you, are you seeing a situation whereby, the equilibrium of women in STEMs and men in STEM is going to be standardized?
Certainly, I'm extremely hopeful. I believe in a future of Kenya where we are going to have more women in STEM. I am going to be a big advocate of encouraging all women to pursue a course in STEM and to pursue a career in a STEM subject, and to be a leader and to promote other women by all means. Promote all the girls, encourage them, whoever they are, be they your nieces, your cousins, your small sisters, whoever it might be, your friends, your neighbors, your daughters, anything. Please encourage more women to take STEM subjects. Our country needs it. This is an appeal from me to everyone. Please encourage the girls to believe in themselves, that they can do it, and show them role models of people who have done it. We have lots of examples in our country that we can start with. I remember Professor Wangari Maathai. She's one of my heroes, one of my role models, and a protector of our environment, a scientist, a zoologist, and in her own right. We should be encouraged by such Nobel laureates and others. So please, the future is very bright for anybody in STEM. And as Jack says, the world is in short supply of developers. We need them like you cannot believe it. So learn to code. I think everybody should learn to code from kindergarten. Let me say, start to teach them to code in kindergarten. That's why I said the curriculum has to change. We've got to teach children a number of things so that they can be competitive on the global stage in the future. And that would be my dream.
Very well. And Jack, before I let you go as well, can you probably maybe take a few minutes, to highlight some of the areas that you feel women can take advantage of and thrive within the STEM ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, overall, in the whole area of STEM, I think it's open for the taking for women, to be honest. There's no one particular place I can pinpoint. What I can assure the girls and the parents of girls who are watching this, the role for me and people like Romana here is to create opportunities for your kids. And so please push them, because we have created the opportunities. I mean, the Microsoft Development Center that builds things for Microsoft, we started in 2018. The ambition was to create 300 jobs here in Kenya. Now we're at 500. 500 well-paying jobs, because these are knowledge workers. These are not factory workers, so to speak. And so they are able to take care of their families. I mean, how we do it in Africa. You take care of your brothers, your sisters, you educate them, your families, etc. And we will continue creating more jobs, as, for example, as Microsoft. We have right now, I think, almost 100 open positions. And so, we are creating opportunities. We need the girls to take advantage of these opportunities we're creating, and many more are coming. Like I said, I'm sure other organizations out there globally are seeing what Microsoft is doing in Kenya and will say, oh, okay, so they have good people. Let's go there and invest. And so the jobs are coming. What you need to do is just make sure that we have the talent pipeline, and a lot of it being girls.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed for finding time to be with us in the last 1 hour. We appreciate, of course, because of your insight, and of course, let's look forward for a more equal society in terms of women who are taking STEM courses, and let's try to level the playing field.
Absolutely.
Very good. And to the people watching this program, thank you very much indeed. Let me tell you this. I mean, the world is moving to a technologically driven future. You don't want to be left out because you're a woman or because you're a man. All of us must move together, because we have to be there in that future, and we must start living that future now. And for those people who are in the market looking for jobs or thinking about what kind of a course or studies am I going to take, please be encouraged by the fact that there are so many jobs within the STEM's ecosystem. Don't think twice about it. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you for your time. Remember, Tamarini is coming up next with Khalid. Stay right here. Good afternoon.
Me, I knew when was getting married, it was automatic that I'll get my baby. So I did not do any family planning, and baby was not coming. So my in-laws thought, because I'm an orphan, they thought that I was doing that so that we can get money for dowry. So they actually told me on the face that I knew I could not conceive, but I ended up being married by their son.
Daktari akaniambia sababu hii tubes zako zimeblock, kuna venye tunaweza unblock, na nikafanya surgery ya kwanza. Nikapata mimba ikatoka na miezi 2. So hata usiku saa zingine naamka naguza niangalie kama bado iko.
Na madaktari wanasema kila kitu iko, mtoto wako sawa?
Twins.
Oh, you are pregnant with twins?
Yes.
Oh wow, congratulations.
No one can do what you've done. No, nobody. You give me joy.
It was 1947 when Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball by joining the Brooklyn Dodgers. Born 11-year-old Sam Allen.
That was the greatest thing that ever happened. It gave us a hero. Everybody wanted to be a baseball player. And I knew then that I wanted to be a baseball player.
I knew something was wrong. I didn't want my mom to think it was something that I was doing, that I did to bring this on to myself. So I just kept it bottled up.
Ivania was only 11 years old when she was molested by a family friend.
As mighty as you are, you call me by my name. As holy as you are, I am adopted as your own. As mighty as you are.
Niliambiwa niende hospitalini kwa sababu kijana wangu alipatikana akitaka kujinyonga.
Nataka kunyonga. Mkoro wa mine nimekuwa nikuchapiaje kusuriba tu kai.
Nishakwambia mara nyingi usiniite mkoro.
Wewe ni mkoro jo.
Riba sijui interest ya shule.
Ongea Kiswahili straight.
Ongea senga ambayo hata wewe mwenyewe utaelewa. Mimi nakuuliza, hii mambo ilikuwa inatokea ukiwa wapi? Wewe wayo.
Acha kuniuliza nilikuwa wapi?
Wazazi wote tukae chini na watoto wetu, uwe rafiki wa mtoto, umuulize mtoto kama kuna matatizo inaendelea pale shuleni. Imekuwa ni too much, mheshimiwa.
قلبي على بابك سجاد يدعوك يا الله.
Watu watafufuliwa kutoka katika makaburi yao siku ya Kiyama. Leo duniani nasema al-yawmun amal duna jaza. Leo watu wanafanya matendo duniani hakuna malipo, na siku ya Kiyama jazaa duna al-amal, ni malipo hakuna matendo siku ya Kiyama.
Idhnillahi ta'ala, tujizatiti katika kutekeleza kile ambacho kitatuwezesha kuishi maisha bora na kuandaa akhira ambayo itakuwa ni ya kutufurahisha biidhnillahi ta'ala.
الشام واليمن إن الغريب غريب اللحد والكفن إن
It's a beautiful day, isn't it?
Hamjatikanisha? Kwani mnamuvu suro aje?
Come on, let's just snap out of it. Please, you will kill us.
My people, ladies and gentlemen, my biggest barrier has been answered.
Now, that is a perfect example of a nightmare. Hey!
I know you should see her. She's mwah. Oh, there goes my time. Get my books and bring them to the staff. Okay.
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
Pincushion not once but twice. Jimmy Havoc. Oh no.
No! Drop toe hold into the chair with the
Contra is everywhere. And when you least expect it. We just might bring the war to your front door. LA Port, the Contra unit is about to give you your own Day of the Dead. Hell, Contra!
Ahlan wa sahlan mtazamaji, mdundo huyo ni ishara tosha kwamba taarifa ya kurunzi mashinani nanga sasa hivi siku ya 17 mwezi Februari mwaka 2022. Alhamisi, natumai uko mzima na uko salama. Karibu ni kufahamisha mengi. Mimi ni Khalid Abdullahi. Serikali ya kitaifa kwa ushirikiano na serikali ya kaunti ya Kilifi zimezindua mpango maksusi wa kukabiliana na visa vya itikadi kali ya vurugu za kisiasa katika kaunti hiyo. Kamishna wa kaunti ya Kilifi Kutsa Olaka amewaonya wale wanaojihusisha kwenye maovu kama hayo dhidi ya kutumia kisababu cha dini kutenda uovu, akisema viongozi wa kidini wanapaswa kuwa mfano bora kwa vijana.
Ndipo tumewashirikisha viongozi wa kidini zote ili tuweze kuzuia mazingara ambao vijana wetu watapotoshwa na waelekezwe kwa barabara ambayo sio sawa.
If we are not taking care of our young people, then the likelihood of increased vulnerability for push factors to influence young people joining makundi haramu basi itakuwa kwamba tumeipandisha.
We have a national strategy, but when you look at the national strategy, za zingine huwa hailengi yale challenges zenye tuko nazo kwa county. So there was a need to actually come back to ourselves, our communities, and understand what is it that really affects us at the county level.
Leo bwana commissioner launch security contact cards ambazo wanajamii ikiwa wataona taswishi yoyote pale nyanjani wanaweza kuripoti kwa haraka na ikaweza kuchukuliwa hatua kwa haraka.
Na mtazamaji, zaidi ya wanafunzi 3,000 wanaojiandaa kwa mtihani wa kitaifa wa darasa la 8 eneo bunge la Ruiru, kaunti ya Kiambu, watapokea chakula na maji bila malipo wakati wa mtihani huo. Mbunge wa Ruiru Simon Kingara amesema mpango huo unanuia kuwasaidia wanafunzi kutoka jamii zisizojiweza kupata mlo wakati wa kipindi cha mtihani.
Akikabidhi hudi ya zaidi ya shilingi milioni 1.25 katika shule ya msingi ya Mwiki katika eneo bunge la Ruiru, mbunge wa eneo hilo Simon Kingara alisema wazazi wengi hawana uwezo wa kuwalipia watoto wao ada za chakula cha mchana, na hali hii inaweza kuathiri matokeo yao kwenye mtihani wa kitaifa wa darasa la 8 ambao unatarajiwa kuanzia tarehe 7 mwezi ujao hadi tarehe 10 mwezi huo.
Tumekuwa na kilio kikuu kutoka kwa wazazi kwa sababu wengi wamepoteza kazi juu ya corona. Wengine wamefutwa kazi, wengine wana biashara zao zimefungwa na uchumi umezorota, na wakawa na changamoto ya kupata pesa ya kupatia watoto wao chakula wakati wanafanya mtihani.
Uamuzi wa kutoa chakula cha shule zote za umma katika eneo hilo umejiri baada ya baadhi ya wazazi katika eneo hilo kulalamika kuwa hawana uwezo wa kukidhi mahitaji ya kimsingi ya watoto wao.
Na polisi katika eneo la Thika wamewakamata watu wawili waliokuwa wakijisingizia kuwa mawakili na kupokea pesa kutoka kwa umma. Washukiwa hao ambao ni mwanamke na mwanamume walinaswa katika msako mkali uliongozwa na idara ya upelelezi wa jinai kwa ushirikiano na chama cha mawakili tawi la Thika.
Washukiwa hao wawili ni miongoni mwa kundi la watu wanaojidai kuwa mawakili na kupokea pesa kutoka kwa wananchi. Kukamatwa kwao kunafuatia vidokezi vilivyotolewa na wananchi kwa afisi za chama cha mawakili humu nchini, hali iliyochochea kufanyika msako.
Tumepata ripoti kwa wananchi, wakili wenzetu
ambao wamepata kuwa unapata kazi ile umepanga imedidimia, na kwa wananchi wa kawaida unapata analia kuwa amepeana pesa mahali, pesa yake imechukuliwa na hakuna kazi imefanywa.
Wakiwahimiza wenyeji kuwa waangalifu, maafisa wa chama cha mawakili wakiongozwa na mwenyekiti wa tawi la Thika Daniel Gachau walisema wataendelea na msako ili kuwanasa wahalifu zaidi.
Kujua wakili, ukiingia kwa ofisi kuna yale nitaita certificates ambazo utaweza kuziona vizuri, na kama haziko, kama ambaye unataka kupatiwa hiyo kazi ama kufanyiwa hiyo kazi, chukua wakati kuuliza. Naweza ona cheti chako cha kuhitimu, naweza ona cheti chako cha kuwa uko na leseni ya kufanya kazi kama wakili.
Affidavits were paying for affidavits, and it was very unfortunate that those persons were being lied to, that they are receiving legal services, yet the persons who are offering are not qualified to offer legal service.
Nikiripotia Kurunzi, mimi ni Zainab Said.
Na baraza la wazee wa ukoo wa Bakayo wamesema watamunga mkono mwaniaji wa gavana wa kaunti ya Busia kwa tikiti ya mrengo wa Kenya Kwanza katika uchaguzi mkuu wa mwezi Agosti. Kupitia mwenyekiti wa baraza hilo Peter Mangeni, wazee hao wamesema watamunga mkono mbunge huyo wa eneo bunge la Nambale Sakwa Bunyasi, wakisema ana sifa nzuri ya maendeleo.
Wazee hao walisema watawapigia kura watu binafsi na sio vyama katika uchaguzi mkuu wa mwezi Agosti.
Si chama. Kwa maana chama ni non-living thing. Ni mtu na living thing. Tunaweza kusungumuza na mtu, hatuwezi kusungumuza na chama.
Walisema Bunyasi ni kiongozi ambaye ameleta maendeleo kadhaa katika kaunti hiyo.
Bunyasi ni mtu anafanya kazi hata saa 4 usiku. Ukitaka kumuona utazungumza na yeye. He's a man of his own.
If we can have Bunyasi at the county level as a governor, he will do a wonderful job. Even what we have been lacking, I think we shall be lucky to have Bunyasi to accomplish or realize the dream of developing Busia County.
Wazee hao kutoka maeneo bunge ya Nambale na Matayos walisema wametengwa kimaendeleo kwa muda mrefu na sasa wanazingatia kuwachagua viongozi watakaopigania ajenda ya kaunti hiyo.
Watu wako tu kwa maneno yao. Hata ukiona saa hii watu wanapayuka na vyama, anatengeneza vyama vingine vinaitwa mbolea. Lakini bei ya mbolea saa hii ni shilingi 5,000. Kumependelea kwenda pahali ambapo tunaweza pata maendeleo. Si maneno tu tupu.
Jelis Aladi, Kurunzi Mashinani.
Mtazamaji, viongozi wa kidini na wazee katika kaunti za Laikipia, Samburu na Baringo wakiongozwa na Askofu Mkuu Virgilio Pante wa kanisa la Katoliki Dayosisi ya Maralal wametoa wito wa uvumilivu na maelewano miongoni mwa wanasiasa na wafuasi wao, huku taifa hili likielekea katika uchaguzi mkuu ujao. Haya yanajiri baada ya hofu na taharuki kuongezeka miongoni mwa wakazi wa Laikipia baada ya kuzuka kwa mashambulizi mapya katika eneo hilo.
Akiongea mjini Rumuruti katika kaunti ya Laikipia baada ya mkutano wa amani uliodumu kwa siku nzima, Askofu Mkuu Pante alisema hali ya kiangazi katika kaunti za Isiolo na Samburu, ambapo wavamizi wengi wanadaiwa kutekeleza mashambulizi katika kaunti ya Laikipia wanatoka, imefanya maisha kuwa magumu zaidi katika kaunti hiyo. Viongozi na wazee kutoka eneo hilo wameelezea wasiwasi kuwa huenda hali hii inahusiana na uchaguzi mkuu ujao.
Tuache hiyo desturi. Nakumbuka 2007, 2008. Zaidi ya 1,000 walikufa na 500,000 walipoteza nyumba. Sasa nafikiri tumejifunza kutoka siku hiyo.
Askofu mkuu mstaafu Jacob Lensuda wa kanisa la Kianglikana la Maralal alisema wameanza kampeni za kuhimiza amani ili kuhakikisha amani inarejea katika eneo hilo kabla ya uchaguzi mkuu ujao. Aliwatahadharisha wanasiasa dhidi ya kujihusisha na siasa za kikabila ambazo huenda zikaathiri umoja na amani katika eneo hilo.
Tunaweza kuwaambia wapendwa ambao wanatafuta kura kwa watu waweze kuvumiliana na watu wachunge maneno ambayo yanasema, ili wasije chochea watu waweze kupigana ama kuchukiana.
Bi Generika Lotiktik ambaye ni balozi wa amani alisema juhudi kabambe zinahitajika kutoa hakikisho la kulinda mali ya kibinafsi na kuhimiza usawa katika utumizi wa mali asili na kubuni mkakati wa muda mrefu wa kuwezesha wakazi kukabiliana na athari za ukame.
Langu ni kusema tu serikali nawaomba sana muweke karibu kila mahali ya Laikipia shule, ndio watu waweze kuingisha watoto shule na kuacha hii mambo ya wanasema uranisi, kwa sababu hiyo ndio inachangia sana watu wale hawa vijana wenye hawajaenda shule ndio wanafunzwa wakiwa wadogo mpaka wanakuja sasa badala washike kalamu wanashika hiyo bunduki.
Na mtazamaji, sasa tuelekee kaunti ya Kajiado ambapo licha ya kuwepo kwa kanuni za kudhibiti upashaji tohara humo nchini, wasichana katika kaunti ya Kajiado bado wanakumbatia tohara hiyo kutokana na shinikizo kutoka kwa marika yao na jamii kwa jumla.
Kwenye hafla moja ya mashauriano ya kijamii kuhusu ukeketaji wa wasichana iliyoandaliwa na wadau katika kijiji cha Nkorika, kaunti dogo ya Kajiado ya Kati, wasichana ambao hawajatahiriwa hukabiliwa na changamoto ya kutangamana na wenzao ambao tayari wameonja gariba, huku wengine wakikosa wapenzi.
Naomba serikali ingilie kati kabisa, kama vile rais wetu alishinikiza tufanye. Ingilie kati kabisa, kwa sababu wanajamii wako na imani tofauti kutokana na vitu ambavyo vimefanyika katika utamaduni wetu, na sisi ambao tunajaribu kufika kwa vijiji kuwaelezea na kuwasaidia wale wasichana ambao wamepitia hiki kitendo, tunapata changamoto. Kwa mfano, unapata wale wazazi wanatenga yule msichana ambaye hataki kukeketwa, wenzake pia wanamtenga.
Wakati wa kujifungua, wakunga walipisha hada ya juu wanawake wajawazito ambao hawajakeketwa na angalabu katakata kuwasaidia kujifungua.
Mambo ambayo wale wamama ama wale wasichana ambao hawajakeketwa wanapitia wakati wanapojifungua, niliongelea saa zile ya kwamba wakati wanapojifungua wale wakunga ambao wakuzalisha wanamwekea gharama ya juu, kwa sababu eti wanamaanisha ya kwamba damu yake si safi. So nilishangaa wakati juzi tu msichana mmoja ambaye alipatwa na mambo kama hayo. Alijifungua na ule mama ambaye kuna mama mmoja aliitwa msaidie, alikataa. Kwanza mmoja alikataa kumsaidia, hakusema kwa nini, kwa sababu hakutaka kumsaidia, eti ni ya kwamba kwa sababu msichana hakukeketwa. Mwingine pia alikuja kumsaidia wakati msichana alipojifungua.
Wadau mbalimbali wanatoa wito ya wepo mashauriano miongoni mwa jamii ya Wamasai ili kulinda kukinga mtoto wa kike kutokana na mila na utamaduni hasi kama hii ya ukeketaji.
Kwa tafadhali tulinde watoto wetu wasichana, tulinde dada zetu wasipatwe na mimba za mapema, kwa sababu sasa bado ni wadogo sana. Hata akipata hiyo mimba, kwa kweli hata kliniki hata afford kupeleka mtoto. Hilo ni jukumu letu sisi kama wazazi, kama viongozi wa area hii na chief. Ningeomba kuanzia sasa hivi uanze kuongea na kina mama, uanze kuongea na opinion leaders walioko hapa ya kwamba likizo inakuja na tunataka hawa wasichana wetu wale wote wataenda wakifunga shule hiyo tarehe 5. Tunataka wote warudi shule ikifunguliwa wakiwa.
Na Baraza la Utamaduni na Maendeleo la Jamii ya Bagusi linatarajiwa kuhamasisha wakazi kuhusu maadili ya ndoa kufuatia ongezeko la ndoa baina ya jamaa wa familia moja. Ndoa hizo zimetajwa na baraza hilo kuwa kinyume cha mila na utamaduni, kwani zinahujumu desturi za jamii hiyo.
Kulingana na kanisa na baraza hilo la wazee wa Bagusi, ndoa baina ya watu wa familia moja ni mwiko. Kulingana na mchungaji Joel Okindo ambaye ni afisa wa ngazi ya juu katika kanisa la Seventh Day Adventist kanda ya Afrika Mashariki na Afrika ya Kando, ndoa za uharimu zinatokana na wazazi kushindwa kuwaelimisha wanao kuhusu desturi, utamaduni, maadili na athari za ndoa hizo.
Wengine wako nje ya bara la Afrika, hawana habari, wanakutana pale masomoni, wanapendana. Wakirudi nyumbani na nia ya kuheshimu wazazi na kuwaelezea nia yao na kusudi la kutaka kuoana, wanakumbwa na habari hii kwamba ninyi ni ndugu kutoka jamaa moja na hamwezi mkaoana.
Matundura Araka ambaye ni mwenyekiti mkuu wa Baraza la Maendeleo na Utamaduni la Jamii ya Bagusi amesema wazee na wadau kutoka jamii hiyo watabuni kamati ya kunakili maoni kuhusu jinsi ya kukomesha ndoa hizo.
Kuanzia leo tunaenda kuunda kamati mbalimbali ambazo zitasungumzia juu ya hili jambo, na baadaye tutaandika hata kitabu kuhusu haya mambo.
Alihimiza kanisa, wazee na wataalamu kuweka kando mitazamo yao kwa lengo la kutatua swala hilo. Nikiripotia Kurunzi Mashinani, naitwa Wamboi Otende.
Na maafisa wa ulinzi wa bahari wamelaumiwa kwa kumpiga risasi mfanyabiashara mmoja wa samaki katika eneo la Ziwa Naivasha mnamo Jumatano asubuhi. Mfanyabiashara huyo Simon Thuku yasemekana alikuwa akinunua samaki kutoka kwa baadhi ya wavuvi alipopigwa risasi na maafisa hao kufuatia malumbano kwenye ufuo wa Karagita karibu na barabara ya Moi.
Kisa hicho kinajiri miezi miwili baada ya afisa mmoja wa ulinzi wa bahari kwa kumuua kwa kumpiga risasi mfanyabiashara huyo katika eneo la ufuo wa Karagita.
Tumeamkia jambo la fisherman kuuawa na watu wa Coast Guard. Hii ikiwa ni mara ya pili mtu kushutiwa na watu wa Coast Guard juu ya samaki. Na ku make the matter worse, ile mbaya kabisa, mwenye ameuawa leo ako na barua. Sio wale wanasemekana ati wanaiba samaki, ako na barua. Amepigwa risasi 6.
Naibu wa kamishna wa kaunti ndogo ya Naivasha Mutua Kisilu alisema wakati wa malumbano hayo mmoja wa maafisa hao wa ulinzi alikatwa kwa upanga, jambo lililowalazimu wenzake kuingilia kati. Hata hivyo alisema ripoti kuhusu tukio hilo halijabainika, akiongeza kuwa uchunguzi rasmi umeanzishwa. Kwingineko, wamiliki wa hoteli huko Naivasha wamegoma wakilalamikia kushindwa kwa tume ya kuainisha marupurupu na mishahara ya watumishi wa umma kuangazia upya marupurupu ya mahitaji ya msingi kwa wafanyakazi wa umma katika mji huo. Wamehoji hatua ya kuongeza ada za jiji la Nakuru na kushusha hadhi ya mji wa Naivasha kutoka daraja la kwanza hadi la pili, licha ya kuwa na 80% ya hoteli katika kaunti hiyo.
The investment in Naivasha, especially the tourism and hospitality investment, happened in a span of 10 years. From 2008 when Naivasha was elevated to 2018. But now when the SRC came and downgraded Naivasha, most of the MICE organizers have been contemplating where to go.
Hatimaye bunge la kaunti ya Kericho limeidhinisha shilingi bilioni 8.3 kwenye bajeti ya ziada, ambapo 62% ya pesa hizo zitatumiwa kugharamia matumizi ya kila siku na 38% kutengewa miradi ya maendeleo.
So sisi bado tunaendelea vizuri, tuko na 8% ya kuchezea in terms of vile development vote imeenda juu kidogo. So tumesaidika kama county.
Kulingana na mwakilishi wadi wa Aina Moi Cheruyot Bet, pesa zingine zimetengewa usajili wa maafisa 300 wa polisi. Nikiripotia Kurunzi Mashinani, naitwa Wamboi Otende.
Na msomaji, taarifa hiyo ndio inatukamilishia Kurunzi Mashinani wakati huu, na kusiusiende mbali kwani mwenzangu Nancy Okware yuko katika studio za pili kukuletea tamrini Alhamisi hii ya leo. Shukrani sana kwa wale wote waliofanikisha Kurunzi Mashinani. Mimi ni Khalid Abdullahi, anayenisaidia kwa lugha ishara ni Lensa Odinga. Hadi panapo majaliwa yake Maulana, kwa heri.
Keep abreast of the developments live from the National Assembly and the Senate.
On our members of parliament.
The questions.
When is the construction expected to commence?
The motions.
Beg to give notice of the following motion.
The debate.
Will as many as want to say aye.
The statements.
A statement on an issue of general topical concern.
The petitions.
Order number 4, petitions.
Stay tuned to KBC Channel 1 and Radio Taifa for live proceedings from both houses of parliament from Tuesday to Thursday. Live, uncensored, unedited. KBC, your national broadcaster.
I'm not going to leave this town until I've made sure that your alleged love doesn't result in Mariela's ruin.
Well, right now, I'm only interested in protecting her.
Well, you better be.
Why are you going there?
I have the whereabouts of the second witness. I was wondering if he's the one that we are looking for.
So what then, boss? Are you going to let Mariela continue bothering you? No, I won't let her. Actually, I'm working on a permanent solution. But this time, I don't need to kill anyone. What is it?
I don't care because he doesn't love me. He'd do it out of obligation. Stop fooling yourself, Lore.
Put that gun away!
This man is not allowed in here.
I ordered you to put it away!
I said he's not allowed
Put it away!
Lying heart.
Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
Theirs will never be paradise again.
Ain't no romance without finance.
Let's make this place as chaotic as possible.
Mtapostpone rights zao watoto mpaka lini?
I'm not your in-law. I'm not cut out for domestic work.
And you still wonder why your marriage is in shambles.
Unatumiaga moyo kufikiria badala ya akili.
The Wadis and the Jemedaris will always be a family. And you, Christine, will remain to be an outsider.
Do you have a new story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
Niliambiwa niende hospitalini kwa sababu kijana wangu alipatikana akitaka kujinyonga.
Nataka kunyonga. Mkoro wa mine nimekuwa nikuchapiaje kusuri batu kai.
Nishakwambia mara nyingi usiniite mkoro.
Wewe ni mkoro jo.
Riba sijui interest ya shule.
Ongea Kiswahili straight.
Ongea senga ambayo hata wewe mwenyewe utaelewa. Mimi nakuuliza, hii mambo ilikuwa inatokea ukiwa wapi? Wewe wayo.
Acha kuuliza nilikuwa wapi?
Wazazi wote tukae chini na watoto wetu. Uwe unafiki wa mtoto, umuulize mtoto kama kuna matatizo inaendelea pale shuleni. Imekuwa ni too much mheshimiwa.
Theirs will never be paradise again.
Ain't no romance without finance.
Let's make this place as chaotic as possible.
Mtapostpone rights zao watoto mpaka lini?
I'm not your in-law. I'm not cut out for domestic work.
And you still wonder why your marriage is in shambles.
Unatumiaga moyo kufikiria badala ya akili.
The Wadis and the Jemedaris will always be a family. And you, Christine, will remain to be an outsider.
Na mswadakta kabisa mpenzi mtazamaji, leo hii ni siku ya Alhamisi, tarehe ikiwa ni 17 mwezi Februari mwaka wa 2022, nikitumai ya kwamba popote pale ulipo umzima. Karibu sana kwenye Tamrini, ambapo leo hii mtazamaji, kwenye kipindi chetu tutakuwa tunaangazia masuala kuhusiana na ile mizozo ambayo inaweza ikaibuka baada ya uchaguzi ama hata kabla uchaguzi katika vyama vya kisiasa. Na hivyo basi leo hii kwenye studio nitakuwa nazungumza naye Daktari Wilfred Mutubwa ambaye ni naibu mwenyekiti wa jopo la kutatua mizozo ya vyama vya kisiasa ama ukipenda PPDT. Atakuwa anatueleza ni vipi ambavyo, manake tunafahamu ya kwamba hivi karibuni tutakuwa tunapata ile michujo katika vyama vya kisiasa, na hivyo basi wale ambao watakuwa wameathirika watakuwa na malalamishi, watakuwa na wasilisha wapi na ni vipi ambavyo yatakuwa yakitatuliwa. Hivyo basi ni mjadala ambao unaweza ukawasiliana nasi kupitia pale kwenye mitandao ya kijamii, kwenye Twitter @KBC Channel 1 @Nancy Okware. Mimi naitwa Nancy Okware, na mfasiri kwa upande wa ishara ni Lensa Odingo. Hivyo basi karibu tuandamane hadi tamati. Karibu sana Daktari Wilfred kwenye studio zetu, na pengine tunapoanza, ikiwa mtazamaji anajiuliza kuhusiana na jopo hili, majukumu yenu pengine ni yepi na ni kipi ambacho kilichochea kubuniwa kwa jopo lenyewe?
Asante sana Nancy kwa mwaliko. Yangu ni kusema kwanza ya kwamba jopo letu ni mahakama, na ni mahakama ambayo imetengenezwa kisheria. Ni mahakama ambayo imetengenezwa sheria, kwanza katiba ya Kenya article 169. Ukisoma hii ni mojawapo ya zile jopo ama zile mahakama maalum ambazo zimeundwa kisheria. Pili, jopo hili limeundwa chini ya muswada ama sheria inaitwa Political Parties Act. Hii ni sheria ya vyama vya kisiasa ya mwaka wa 2011. Hili jopo liliundwa mwaka huo baada ya katiba ya mwaka wa 2020 kufuatia mazungumzo ambayo Wakenya walikuwa nayo kuhusu sheria za uchaguzi Kenya. Kufuatia ule utata uliotokea mwaka wa 2007-2008, kuna ile commission ambayo Wakenya wanajua kama Kriegler Commission, ambayo ilienda ilizunguka Kenya ikachukua maoni ya Wakenya kuhusu utatuzi wa ugumu ambao unatoka baada ya kura kupigwa hapa Kenya. Kulikuwa na zile inaitwa cycles ya kuwa na shida za kisiasa baada na kabla ya uchaguzi. Na mojawapo ya recommendations ambayo ile jopo lilipeana ya Kriegler ni kwamba kuwe na jopo maalum ama koti maalum ya kushughulikia mizozo ya kisiasa baada ya uchaguzi.
Na ndivyo hivyo sasa tukapata. Tutakuwa tunarejea kwako baada ya muda usiokuwa mrefu, tuendelee na hiyo kauli. Lakini kwa sasa hivi mtazamaji, ningependa tuelekee katika kaunti ya Kirinyaga, ambapo naibu wa Rais William Ruto leo hii ameongoza kampeni za Kenya Kwanza. Hivyo basi tuelekee pale tumsikize anazungumza kwa sasa.
Processing, mambo ya value addition, mambo ya manufacturing, mambo ya housing, ndio tupange ajira ya hawa vijana wetu taifa la Kenya. Kwa sababu tulikuwa nayo ndani ya Big Four, lakini ule mtu ya kitendawili alikuja akatukoroga, akalete kisirani, hiyo mpango ikakwama. Ni kweli ama si kweli? Jambo letu la pili, tunasema wera ni wera. Tunasema kazi ni nini? Tunasema kazi ni kazi. Hata kama kazi yako wewe mtu ya Kivingoti ni kidogo, lazima tukusaidie ili kazi yako ikue kazi kubwa kesho. Na kwa sababu shida ya hawa wananchi wadogo ni mahali ya kukopa pesa ya kuinua biashara yao. Hawana pesa ya kuinua biashara yao. Wakijaribu kwenda kukopa kwa benki hawajulikani. Hawana security. Ile mahali wanaweza kukopa ni kwa Shailo. Ile mahali wanaweza kukopa ni kwa Fuliza. Na Fuliza imezamisha watu wengi kwa CRB. Nebo, tunaelewana? Mimi nikiuliza hapa Kivingoti, ile watu wako blacklisted tayari kwa CRB waweke mkono juu nione. Sasa unaona dunia hii yote, hao watu wote wamezama ndani ya CRB. Tunawaambia hivi mwaka huu kwa mapenzi ya Mungu, kwa sababu tunatambua biashara ya mtu wa chini, tunaweka pesa bilioni 50 kwa biashara ya nyinyi watu wa chini hapo, ndio muweze kukopa hiyo pesa muinue biashara yenu. Na hiyo pesa hatutasema uende utafute kwa county, hautaenda kutafuta kwa constituency, utalete hiyo pesa mpaka kwa ward yako. ndio wewe mama mboga hapa uende kwa ward uchukue pesa uinue biashara yako. Wewe mtu ya boda uende kwa ward yako uchukue pesa uinue biashara yako. Tunaelewana? Lego. Si mimi nimekuja hapa Kirinyaga mara nyingi. Si nimefanya harambee ya boda boda hapa Kirinyaga. Si nimefanya harambee nyingi ya kina mama hapa Kirinyaga. Mpaka mulisikia ule mtu wa kitandawili akaanza kupiga makelele. Anasema ati huyu Ruto anatoa wapi pesa? Huyu Ruto anatoa wapi pesa? Sijui amepatia kina mama milioni 2. Sijui amepatia boda boda milioni 2. Mimi nataka nimwambie mzee wa kitendawili. Boda. Waacha kulalamika ati milioni 2 tumepatia kina mama. Mwaka huu milioni 2 ni pesa kidogo. Waacha kulalamika. Mwaka huu tunaweka bilioni 50 kwa tunaweka pesa ya serikali kuinua biashara ya mtu wa chini. Mimi nauliza nyinyi watu wa Kivingoti, kama tunaweza kuweka bilioni 100 kwa kampuni moja ya Kenya Airways, iko makosa tukiweka bilioni 50 kwa biashara yao watu wengi hawa? Watu wawache kiburi bwana, na watu wawache madharau. Wera ni wera, ama ni aje? Nego kana dingo. Tunaelewana? Na tunasema jambo la tatu, tunaweka pesa ya kutosha kwa kilimo ili tusaidie wakulima, tupunguze gharama ya mbegu na mbolea, ili wakulima wazalishe chakula ya kutosha, mazao yao ya kutosha. Kama ni kahawa wapate mbolea, kama ni chai, kama ni avocado, kama ni maziwa, kuhakikisha kwamba kila mtu anaweza kuzalisha chakula kingi, anaweza kupata mapato ya juu. Tuweke pesa kwa mfuko ya mkulima, na vile vile tuzalishe chakula ya kutosha, tuondoe njaa katika taifa letu la Kenya. Tunaelewana? Na jambo la tatu, la 4 la mwisho, tumekubaliana kabla ya Disemba mwaka huu. Disemba mwaka gani? This year. Kabla ya Disemba, kila mmoja wetu hapa utakuwa na bima ya afya ya NHIF. Kila mmoja wetu. Wananchi wengi wanakosa kwenda hospitali hata akiwa mgonjwa, kwa sababu hajui atalipa hospitali na pesa gani. Sisi tunawaambia sasa, wewe kila mtu ukiwa mgonjwa utaenda hospitalini, utatibiwa na uende nyumbani bila ya kuulizwa pesa yoyote, kwa sababu kila mmoja wetu atakuwa na bima ya afya ya NHIF. Na hiyo ni mwaka huu before December. Mimi na Uhuru Kenyatta tuliwa promise universal health coverage. Si ahadi ni deni. Iko dawa nyingine ya deni. Si ni kulipa. Na hiyo deni lazima tulipe mwaka huu. Tunaelewana? Sasa niwaulize watu wa Kivingoti, hiyo kazi yote nimesema, ule mtu ya kitendawili hata ako na habari hiyo kazi itapangwa namna gani? Ako na habari? Na hata nyinyi hata kama bila ya ubaguzi na bila ya kuonea mtu yoyote, nyinyi watu wa Kivingoti, mkiona ile mzee ya kitendawili vile alivyo, anawezana na hii kazi ya Kenya kweli?
Na mtazamaji, hizo ni picha za moja kwa moja kutoka katika kaunti ya Kirinyaga, ambapo naibu wa Rais William Ruto amepeleka kampeni za Kenya Kwanza katika kaunti hiyo, akiangazia tu baadhi ya yale masuala ambayo atakuwa akiangazia ikiwa ataibuka kuwa rais katika uchaguzi ujao. Mmoja wapo yakiwa ni kuhusiana na kuimarisha biashara kwa wafanyabiashara wadogo, kuimarisha kilimo ikiwemo kupunguza bei ya mbolea na mbegu, na vilevile kusema ya kwamba kufikia Disemba mwaka huu kila Mkenya atakuwa amepata bima ya afya NHIF. Bila shaka mwanahabari wetu Gladys Mongai yuko pale na atakuwa anatupa maelezo zaidi kuhusiana na kampeni za Kenya Kwanza katika kaunti ya Kirinyaga. Lakini hata hivyo, tukirejea hapa kwenye studio leo hii, nilikuwa nazungumza naye Daktari Wilfred Mutubwa ambaye ni naibu mwenyekiti wa jopo la kutatua mizozo mizozo ya vyama vya kisiasa PPDT. Daktari, kabla ya kwenda kupata taarifa hii, ulikuwa unatuelezea tu baadhi ya yale majukumu ambayo jopo lenyu limekuwa nayo, na pengine kidogo tutuzungumze kuhusiana na mizozo ambayo tunatarajia itaibuka wakati ambapo tunaelekea katika michujo ya vyama vya kisiasa, na kama jopo, kabla ya mwanasiasa ama chama chochote kufika kwako, hatua ya kwanza huwa ni ipi?
Asante sana Nancy. Nilikuwa naeleza kwa kifupi, jopo letu ni mahakama na ni mahakama ya siasa. So ni mahakama ambayo inasuluhisha mizozo kati ya vyama vya kisiasa na wa members ambao ni members wa hizo parties. Na pia kuna ile mizozo kati ya vyama ambao imeunda miungano. Na wakati huu tukielekea kwa uchaguzi mkuu, ile mizozo ambayo tunaona inakuja kwa wingi sasa ni ile inalingana na zile zinaitwa party primaries ama mchujo wa political parties kuchagua wale ambao watawania viti mbalimbali. So kuna sheria ambayo tunatumia ni ile inaitwa Political Parties Act. Na hii sheria imetungwa mwaka wa 2011 na imepigwa msasa hivi juzi, na sasa inatupa mwelekeo vipi mtu ambaye anataka kupinga uamuzi wa chama ama kupinga matokeo ya huo mchujo anafaa aende vipi kufika hadi afike kotini ama afike kwetu. Kwanza kabisa, mtu yeyote ambaye ni mwanachama wa chama cha kisiasa ana haki ya kuwania kiti chochote kile ambacho anapenda, ili mradi amefuata ile mikakati imewekwa katika katiba ya chama. So kwanza kabisa ni kuangalia katiba ya chama, na katiba ya chama inayo vipengee ambavyo vinasema kwamba kuwa na ile inaitwa internal party dispute resolution mechanism, ile ambayo ni jopo katika chama ya kutatua mizozo ambayo inaibuka, hata ile ambayo inaibuka wakati wa michujo. So sheria inasema sasa kwamba ukitaka kupinga matokeo, kwanza enda kwa chama chako, kutakuwa na tume kule, kutakuwa na jopo, kutakuwa na mahakama ndogo, kutakuwa na panels ambazo zitakuwa zinasikiza na kufanya uamuzi. Ukimaliza hapo alafu uamuzi utolewe na uwe ujaridhika, unaweza hapo baadaye sasa kuja kwenye jopo letu ama mahakama yetu ambaye ni Political Parties Disputes Tribunal, na uweke complaint ama uweke malalamishi yako ambaye yatasikizwa, alafu tutafanya uamuzi. Na kama bado hujaridhika, uko na haki ya kuenda katika mahakama kuu, High Court zozote hapa Kenya, na baadaye kabisa mwisho unaweza kwenda katika mahakama ya rufaa ama Court of Appeal. Sasa zile ndio steps ambazo mtu anaweza kufuata asiporidhika na uamuzi wa returning officer katika chama, ama katika chama kama chama imepeana direct nomination ama imefanya nomination ile ya kupiga kura, then uko na haki ya kwenda kwa chama, lakini lazima uende kwanza kwa chama.
Pengine ni mfumo upi ambao mnatumia wakati ambapo pengine mwanasiasa fulani alikuwa anataka kuwania kiti fulani, lakini anasema ya kwamba chama chenyewe hakikumridhisha jinsi ambavyo kilipeleka shughuli yenyewe, kiliendesha shughuli yenyewe, na baada ya kuelekea katika lile jopo la chama vilevile hajaridhika. Anapofika kwenyu, hatua ya kwanza huwa ni ipi? Mnachukua hatua zipi hadi kuhakikisha kwamba mnafikia suluhu ambayo pengine itamridhisha, na ikiwa haitamridhisha ataamua kuelekea mbele kutafuta suluhu zaidi?
Sheria ambayo tunatumia ambayo ni Political Parties Act, ukiangalia sehemu ya 39 na 40, utaona ya kwamba jopo hili liko na linaweza kusikiza kesi mara 3. Kesi ya aina 3. Kesi ya kwanza ni kesi ambayo inawasilishwa kama complaint ama lalamishi, na kesi ya pili inaweza kuwa ni ile appeal kutoka kwa msajili wa vyama, na kesi ya 3 inaweza kukuwa ni kesi ingine yoyote ambayo ni kati ya wanachama ama vyama vya kisiasa. Na mlalamishi akija katika jopo letu, jambo la kwanza ni kufile ama kutengeneza ile malalamishi yake kwa kuandika chini katika form ambayo tunaita complaint. Na hiyo form anaweza kuiweka katika mtandao. Tuko na e-filing portals, tuko na mbinu za kidijitali za kuweka complaint yako. So una file hiyo complaint katika e-filing system ya judiciary ambayo kuna portal ya PPDT. Ukishaweka hayo malalamishi, unatuma malalamishi yale kwa chama na kwa yule ambaye unapinga pia. Na sisi tutasikiza hiyo kesi yako kwa muda wa siku 90, 90 days, miezi mitatu
baada ya kuwasilishwa.
Baada ya kuwasilishwa. Kwa muda wa miezi mitatu tutakuwa tumemaliza. Tunaweza kumaliza kwa wiki moja, kwa mwezi moja, lakini isipite miezi mitatu. So sisi tunasikiza wakati huu ambao tunakuwa na michujo, kwa sababu kura huwa zimesonga karibu na siku za kupeleka makaratasi kwa IEBC huwa zimesonga karibu. Jopo letu hufanya kazi usiku na mchana kuhakikisha ya kwamba kesi zimesikizwa. Saa zingine tunasikiza kesi baada ya siku 2 tunapeana uamuzi. So tutapeana uamuzi kwa muda mfupi zaidi kuhakikisha ya kwamba yule ambaye amelalamika, kama malalamishi yake yatakubalika, anaweza kujumuishwa katika orodha ya wale ambao watapigiwa kura, ama zile kura zitarudiwa kule katika political party yake. So sisi tunajaribu, tunajizatiti tuwezavyo kuhakikisha ya kwamba yoyote ambaye anakuja kwetu tunampa haki kwa muda mfupi uwezekanavyo. So hiyo ndio procedure ambayo tunatumia katika jopo, na tukishakupa decision yetu ambaye ni judgment, na tunakupa orders ambazo tunapeana, tunapeleka paka kwa political party, so that chama chako kijue ya kwamba tumebatilisha ama tumekubaliana na chama.
Na pengine mwingine atajiuliza, aseme ya kwamba ndio pengine kama jopo mmetoa uamuzi fulani ya kwamba pengine huyu mwanasiasa ama mwaniaji fulani hakutendewa haki na chama, hivyo basi mkaagize ya kwamba uchaguzi ama ule mchujo urejelewe. Mnafanya nini ili kufuatilia zaidi kuhakikisha ya kwamba chama kimetekeleza hayo? Manake anaweza akasema ya kwamba anapoondoka baada ya uamuzi kutolewa, basi chama kinaweza kubadilisha mambo tena.
Hii ni mahakama. Na mahakama ina kazi ya mahakama inafanywa chini ya sheria, na sheria tunazotumia zinatupa nguvu kwanza kuhakikisha kwamba yale maamuzi tunafanya ni maamuzi ambayo yanaweza kufuatiliwa kisheria. Na tunapopeana uamuzi wetu umeandikwa chini, na ni uamuzi ambao unatoka kotini, na tunahakikisha kwamba uamuzi ule umefikia viongozi wa chama. So tunahakikisha huo uamuzi umefikishwa kwa viongozi wa chama. Pili, pia uamuzi wetu unapelekwa kwa IEBC. Tuna ushirikiano wa karibu sana na IEBC. So tukipeana uamuzi ya kwamba mwanasiasa ama mwaniaji fulani ajumuishwe kwa orodha ya wale ambao watawania kiti kile, tukipeana kwa IEBC huwa unachapishwa. Pili, kama kuna yule ambayo atakiuka ama yule ambayo atapuuza uamuzi wetu, tuko na nguvu za kumwadhibu na hata kumfunga jela. Tunaweza kukufunga jela, tunaweza kukupiga faini, na hivyo vyote tunafanya chini ya sheria, particularly kipengee cha 39 na 40 na 41 ya Political Parties Act. So tuko na nguvu, tuko na uwezo. Hii ni koti, ni mahakama kama ingine yoyote, na ukipuuza uamuzi wa mahakama, chochote unachofanya, yule candidate ambaye utatuma kule IEBC, makaratasi yake huenda yasikubalike, na huo uchaguzi wa chama utakuwa, ile wazungu wanasema null and void, utakuwa hauna msimamo wowote wa kisheria. Hatujaona shida kama hiyo hadi sasa. Mwaka wa 2017 tulitatua kesi karibu 600. Kuna zile tulikubaliana na walalamishi, kuna ile tulikubaliana na chama, na kuna zile tuliweka watu wakarudia uchaguzi na tukapata candidates wengine. So hatujakuwa na shida ya vyama kukiuka masharti ya tume ama ya jopo ama ya koti, na tumekuwa tukifanya ile wazungu wanaitwa sensitization. Tumekuwa tukijaribu kuwafunza political parties kwa miaka 5 kuwaeleza ya kwamba mahakama hii iko kusaidia kukuza demokrasia katika vyama, kukuza demokrasia katika nchi yetu, na tunawahimiza kama chama wawe na zile structures katika political party ambazo zitahakikisha ya kwamba kesi chache kabisa zinaenda mahakamani ama zinakuja kwa jopo. So tumekuwa na uhusiano mzuri. Kuna political parties liaison ambayo ni kikundi cha wanachama wa vyama vile ambavyo, na tuko na vyama 85 Kenya. So unaweza kuangalia na ujue ya kwamba tukifika wakati wa mchujo kutakuwa ni michujo katika level 6 Kenya mzima kwa vyama 85. Ni kazi mingi sana. Na ukipata ya kwamba kesi zinaletwa kotini karibu kesi 700, ina maana ya kwamba tume ama jopo letu liko na nguvu, limeaminiwa na wananchi na linafanya kazi nzuri.
Na pengine maanake umezungumza kuhusiana na hilo swala kuwepo na vyama vingi na vile viwango ambavyo vinatarajiwa, kumaanisha kwamba ikiwa kutakuwa na malalamishi mengi basi mnaweza mkalemewa na kibarua. Ni kipi ambacho mnafanya ili kuhakikisha kwamba wakati uchaguzi unakaribia, angalau katika kaunti kuna ule uwezekano wa kesi kutatuliwa kwa haraka zaidi bila kuwalemea na pengine kumlemea mwingine ambaye ni mwaniaji ambaye muda pia anakimbizana na muda?
Kuna mambo mawili tumejifunza kutoka kwa uchaguzi wa 2017. Hili jopo limekuwa tangu mwaka wa 2011. Na kila mwaka kesi zinazidi zikiwa nyingi. Kwa sababu Kenya ni mahali ambapo demokrasia imekita mizizi. Wakenya wanapenda kufuata haki zao za kisiasa. So tumejifunza mambo mawili. La kwanza ni kwamba lazima tupeleke hizi services zetu, lazima tupeleke huduma zetu kwa watu kule chini kwa mashinani. Na sasa tumejaribu tuwezavyo kuhakikisha ya kwamba tunaanzisha system mpya ambayo tunapeleka hizi kazi ya jopo katika counties ama regions zile zilikuwa provinces hapo awali. So tunajaribu kuona kama tunaweza kuwa na jopo 8. Na sheria ya vyama vya kisiasa ilivyobadilishwa wiki 3 ama 4 zilizopita, sasa imeunda jopo, limekuwa likapanuka. Na jopo litakuwa na watu karibu 25. Na kila jopo litakuwa linakaa watu watatu. Na tutaunda majopo karibu 7 ama 8 ambayo yatakaa katika maeneo yote, pembe zote za Kenya, kuhakikisha kwamba watu hawakuji paka Nairobi kuleta malalamishi. Mwaka wa 2017 kulikuwa na shida kwa sababu jopo lilikuwa na watu 6 ama 7. Na jopo hili lilisikia malalamishi kutoka pande zote za Kenya. Kukawa na ugumu kwa sababu hawa ni binadamu na ni watu wachache na wanasikiza kesi karibu 700 kwa muda wa karibu wiki 2. Ilikuwa shida kubwa. Lakini kwa sasa tumepiga sheria msasa, tumekuwa na hivi ninavyozungumza tume ya kuajiri katika koti JSC inatafuta kuandika watu wengine 18 kuongezea kwa wale 6 tuliopo, na mmoja mwingine ambaye atakuwa anajiunga na jopo pia. Tufike angalau watu 25 26, tuwe na uwezo wa kuwa na jopo 8 ama 7. Cha pili ni tunataka tuwe na mfumo ule wa digitali, ile inaitwa virtual court. So kama kuna mtu kule Mandera ambaye ana malalamishi ambayo anataka kuweka, kama hawezi kufika Wajia ambapo tutakuwa na jopo, ama Marsabit mahali tutakuwa na jopo, hata akiwa nyumbani kwake, at the comfort of his home, anaweza kuingia katika system ya judiciary, kuweka malalamishi na asikizwe kwenye kompyuta ama kwa simu yake ya rununu, na tunaweza kudeliver decision. Hivi sasa sio lazima uje Nairobi ama uje kwa jopo ndio upewe decision ama order ama ile maamuzi ya koti. Tunatuma kwa email. Ama unaenda kwa website na unafanya ile inaitwa downloading. So tunajaribu kupeleka huduma zetu kwa watu. Tunajaribu kupunguza mzigo ule unaambatana na kuleta kesi mbele ya mahakama yetu. Na hizi ni mojawapo zile mbinu ambazo tunatumia kujaribu kuhakikisha ya kwamba jopo na mahakama zinafika na kufanya kazi kwa wananchi kule chini.
Naam. Shukran sana. Tutatamatishia hapo na tunatumai ya kwamba wale ambao walikuwa na pengine maswali mbalimbali wameweza kupata majibu, na ya kwamba watakapokuwa wanaelekea katika ule mchujo watakuwa wanapata ile suluhu ambayo wanahitaji. Hivyo basi tunakushukuru sana kwa muda wako. Mtazamaji, tumekuwa tukizungumza naye Daktari Wilfred Mutubwa ambaye ni naibu mwenyekiti wa jopo la kutatua mizozo ya vyama vya kisiasa PPDT. Na hivyo basi kufikia hapo mie sina la ziada ila kutamatisha tamrini. Shukran sana kwa muda wako. Kumbuka ya kwamba taarifa zaidi utakuwa unazipata saa 7 kwa lugha ya Kimombo. Mie naitwa Nancy Okware, mfasiri kwa upande wa ishara ni Lensa Odingo. Kwa heri.
Una usuli ataka ufanya utoto sasa. Mara ya kwanza nilikuja nikamkosa, na hii mara ya pili pia hayupo.
Nani aliyokupa ruhusa unapiga picha?
Mimi ni lawyer wa governor na nimetumwa.
Waziri kunichekesha. Kila siku wanipamba. Utanipamba lini? Toa sahi 50k.
Kuja kupata aume hapa, kuja kupata kazi. Fanyeni kazi, hakuna kupetia na petia. Wewe kupetia kwanza ni wapi?
Me, I knew when